Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It's a great honor for me to welcome. I would take the reference from the tilawat which has been done, the ulil alba, the people who think, the people who do गौर फिक्र और तदब्बर जैसे कुरान में आया हुआ है बहुत सारी चीज़ों पे. We are lucky to have such a galaxy of the people and welcome Solangi sahab idhar tashrif laiye ji. Galaxy of the scholars, galaxy of the ulil albab, as I was saying, those who think and those who deeply actually analyze the things. Welcome, sir. So I'll start welcoming from our speakers from Mr. Asan sahab. Solangi sahab, welcome. Very, very learned, professional Sadil sahab, Ma'am Zubaida Jalal, Awais Ahmad Ghani sahab, Governor multiple times, mashallah, and has had worn many hats. Shakil Ahmad Durrani sahab, हमारे अपने ambassador Durrani. Ishtiyaq sahab, he has been secretary of the election commission in good times, I would say, non-controversial times. Naveed Kashif sahab is representing Dunya. The paper which we have in front of us, Mia Amir Mahmood wrote this paper from Dunya News. Rashid Wali, you all know, our director research. And we are lucky to have Daniel Aziz sahab. Daniel Aziz sahab, if you remember, has actually worked on this subject. And this subject, as he says, has been quite close to his heart. We are also lucky to have Ambassador Muhammad Hassan. He belongs to GB and he has great experience. We have been also joined by Brigadier Mujahid Alam, a senior veteran. So we would like to benefit from him as well. Actually, this is the first roundtable discussion which we are going to have. And sorry, Ori Saab, thank you. Shahid Saab is the CEO, MD of the GenCos of Pakistan. Asif, one of our analysts, and my own team. It's a subject which has been in the limelight for some times, and then it goes backstage, then it again emerges. There have been various discussions on this, how to handle the governance and administrative issues which a huge country like Pakistan faces. Welcome, Brigadier Ishaq. Ishaq is a good friend, scholar, and also author of a book on Afghanistan. So, हर वक्त बात होती है, कभी कहते हैं जी कि बना लेने चाहिए, कभी कहते हैं नहीं बनाने चाहिए, एक वक्त आता है बड़ी हाइप आ जाती है, एक वक्त आता है सारे सो जाते हैं. I don't know how to begin, मेरे से कोई गलत बात ना हो जाए, but sometimes one thinks that the fiefdoms and the turf which the families, which the parties have, they don't want to cede, they don't want to part away with, they don't want to share actually the power. Maybe this could be the reason. Or there are certain other reasons. But at the same time, if we have more provinces, if you have too many provinces, like 30, 36 provinces based on the divisions, it is going to be actually, again, a very, very unmanageable thing. A province does not need only the name or the boundaries. A province needs administration, province needs money, province needs its own administrative structure which has to be mature to run the province. And most importantly, हमारा जैसे हो गया है कि एक province को अगर आप देखते हैं तो उसके गवर्नर हैं, वज़ीर हैं, assembly है, सारा कुछ है, उनकी अपनी perks and privileges हैं, फिर उसका जो administrative structure है वो सारा आपको चाहिए. So you need lots of time, lots of money. But should we begin with a little on a lower scale? For example, if we start experimenting with the larger provinces, for example, Punjab, Sindh and Baluchistan and even KP, कि उनको आप पहले बहुत छोटे divisions ना करें, बड़े divisions के तौर पे देख लें. Secondly, another aspect which is to be considered is, should it be done on the ethno-linguistic lines or geographical lines? एक तरीका तो बड़ा आसान लगता है कि जी इंडिया की भी आप एग्जांपल देते हैं कि उनके पास 24 प्रोविंसेस हैं. मलेशिया इज़ वन ऑफ दोज कंट्रीज़, उनके डजन्स ऑफ प्रोविंसेस हैं. उनके शायद हमारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट जितना एक प्रोविंस है, बिकॉज स्मॉल कंट्री, लार्ज पॉपुलेशन दो. तो क्या हम जोग्राफिकल बेसिस पे कर लें? तो ये सारी चीज़ें हैं, ये 3 क्वेश्चंस हैं जो आपके लिए हम रख रहे हैं. इसके अलावा आपके अपने जहन में जो भी आता है, आप काइंडली फील फ्री. दिस इज़ द फर्स्ट ऑफ द राउंड टेबल्स इन दिस सीरीज़. वी आर गोइंग टू हैव मोर राउंड टेबल्स ऑन इट, and maybe then another event on it before we finalize our recommendations for the government of Pakistan. But this is one thing I think we essentially need in today's world, that it will become easy, manageable country to govern and to mitigate the challenges that we face with larger population and larger country. Thank you so much. And with this, I will hand you over to Rashid Wali. He will moderate today's session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. A very warm welcome to all the distinguished participants. It's a very eclectic cast of practitioners, former bureaucrats, politicians, and media persons, and we expect to garner the best out of them. And the inputs would be converted into a strategy paper for the policymakers. Right from the outset, before I lay down the conditions and start the dialogue, like to just point out that what are the impelling factors that we are discussing new provinces. There are 3 reasons: administrative, economic, and political. Under the administrative reasons, the delivery of public goods like law and order, civic amenities, and infrastructure development emerge as the important elements that would get facilitated under a government capable of providing these public goods more efficiently and economically. So the emphasis is on efficiency and economics. A very important governance element is the empowerment of people at the local government. Now this means that the provinces to be politically and fiscally empowered, and the government should react to the people rather than people reacting to the government. Politically, by converting existing administrative divisions into new provinces, the negativity generated by ethno-linguistic particularism would be mitigated. The deprivations would be assuaged, but the downside could be a country's slow transition towards a unitary polity from federalism. The lack of political representation, economic disparity, and development. So these are the 3 parameters that form the warp and woof of all other our discussions on new provinces. Because if we do not take into considerations these 3 elements, all our initiatives would wither on the vine of either political expediency or lack of will. We know that from 1947 onwards, India started with 565 princely states and 17 provinces. Now they have 28 states and 8 union territories. In the last 6 years, they have created 6 provinces. And the reason, the rationale for them was linguistic also, cultural also, and economic also. Geographically, Madhya Pradesh and UP were carved out of central provinces. Linguistically, South India had more provinces. Culturally, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh were carved, and historically, Goa. Now we know that all provinces, if you consider the countries of the world which are of the same size, 25% of the population, so that is about the max that a province has. In Pakistan's case, Baluchistan is just having 5% of the population. Punjab is the opposite with 56%. So that's a mismatch that needs to be addressed. A quick aside about the number of provinces in the countries of nearly the same and some larger. India has 28, Malaysia has 13, Nigeria has 36, Indonesia has 38 provinces, Bangladesh 8, Turkey surprisingly 81, sir. Iran has 30, and China obviously there is no match geographically, but they have 34 provinces. So, sir, with this short overview, I would not like to interpose any longer between the learned views of the participants, and in the interest of equity, we'll start from left to right. First, sir, Hassan, Ambassador Hassan from GB. And we would like this first round 7 to 10 minutes of initial pitch so that everybody has an opportunity to say their piece, and then we'll start the second round where more detailed discussion could ensue. So over to you, sir. We start with you.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Respected President IPRI, eminent panelists, and respected participants, I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to deliberate on this matter of national significance. It's not very common that when we are talking about Federation of Pakistan, Gilgit Baltistan is on the table, and I'm thankful to Chairman IPRI for giving me this opportunity. We all know that Pakistan is composed of 4 federating units and 2 non-federating units, AJK and Gilgit Baltistan, are also under its administrative control. So these 6 administrative units forms the structural foundation of the country. Now today our main concern is whether the current provincial framework optimally serves the imperatives of governance, equity, and national cohesion, or is there a compelling need for structural recalibration? To address this question, one must first grasp the essence of the federation. A federation, by design, is a delicate balance or an intricate mechanism that disperses powers among its constituent units while upholding the unity of the state. Much like a symphony where each instrument must harmonize without overshadowing others, a federation thrives when its components function in synchrony. For Pakistan, maintaining this harmony and synchrony and balance is paramount. Any discussion on restructuring the country's provinces, therefore, must be rooted in the principle that reform should fortify the federation, not create new fault lines. Globally, many federations have navigated similar challenges. Some have successfully addressed them by reorganizing their administrative boundaries. Countries like Iran, India, Nigeria, and Turkey have established new states or provinces to improve governance and boost administrative efficiency. Conversely, there are countries like the United States, Canada, Mexico, and Brazil. They have maintained large federating units, but ensuring integration through robust institutional mechanisms. So in both approaches, the objective remains the same: to uphold justice and unity among federating units. History shows that when states fail to uphold justice in power sharing and resource allocation, discord follows, often with irreversible consequences. The dissolution of Yugoslavia is a stark reminder of this reality. Pakistan itself has witnessed the perils of imbalance, most notably in the secession of East Pakistan in 1971. Even today, structural asymmetries persist in Pakistan. Punjab, home to over 56% of the population, wields disproportionate influence, fostering resentment among smaller provinces. But meanwhile, Gilgit-Baltistan, from where I belong to, remains in a constitutional vacuum. It lacks representation in the National Assembly or Senate, effectively silencing its residents in federal policy making. For Pakistan's federal system to optimally function, these foundational imbalances need to be addressed in a way that all its constituents feel equally valued and empowered. While structural recalibration of provinces is an important national debate, the constitutional integration of Gilgit-Baltistan is even more urgent priority. It is deeply unfortunate that a region which fought and liberated itself from the clutches of its colonial rulers and voluntarily joined Pakistan, remains trapped in perpetual constitutional uncertainty. For decades, Gilgit Baltistan was governed under FCR, a relic of colonial rule that muffled civil rights and suppressed local governance. Although the FCR was abolished in 1972, the region's journey towards constitutional clarity and full integration remained incomplete. In 2009, the Gilgit-Baltistan Empowerment and Self-Government Order introduced a legislative assembly and a chief minister offering a semblance of self-rule. However, federal authorities retain overriding control, rendering the assembly's powers largely superficial. In 2015, the GB Legislative Assembly unanimously passed a resolution demanding provincial status to the region, reflecting the region's collective aspiration. Responding to that call, the then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif formed a high-level committee under a veteran politician, Sartaj Aziz Saab, to explore a viable solution. This committee, after 2 years of deliberation, recommended granting provincial status to GB. However, instead of implementing these recommendations, the government introduced the GB Governance Order 2018, which further curtailed regional autonomy. This order was resented by the people of GB and challenged in the court. And finally, the Supreme Appellate Court of GB declared it null and void. The federal government, however, reinstated through the Supreme Court of Pakistan. While adjudicating this case, the Apex Court made two important judgments. First one was it directed the federal government to initiate the constitutional process for GB's integration as a provisional province. And secondly, it also ordered to enact within 14 days the GB Governance Order 2019, which was placed as an annexure to the judgment as an interim arrangement. And the third judgment was that it extended its Supreme Court's writ to Gilgit-Baltistan. But 7 years later, now, these directives remain unimplemented. So, ladies and gentlemen, in 2020, the PTI government reaffirmed its intention to grant GB provisional province status, yet no tangible action followed. So one argument against granting GB provincial status is its linkage to the Kashmir dispute. Successive governments have hesitated, fearing that integrating GB might weaken Pakistan's stance on Kashmir. However, history contradicts this assumption. For instance, the 1963 Pakistan-China border agreement, which defined the boundary between Pakistan-administrated GB and China's Xinjiang region, clearly notes that it will be reassessed once the Kashmir dispute is finally resolved. This agreement has survived for the last 63 years without causing any problem to Pakistan's stance on the Kashmir issue, whereas this agreement had also ceded a part of GB to China, which is India always mentioned about it. So why not to replicate it to grant constitutional right to the people of GB? That's the question, a big question which I have. Moreover, the linking Gilgit-Baltistan's future to a hypothetical UN plebiscite is impractical. And I believe that this point has never been raised in any forum. It's an overlooked yet pressing issue. The long-standing non-enforcement of the state subject rule, unlike in AJK, has allowed unchecked migration in and out of the GB region, triggering significant demographic shift. There are more than 1 million GBians living in other parts of Pakistan without any documentation. Similarly, people from all over Pakistan and even from Xinjiang region of China, they have settled in GB without any documentation, and how are we going to do that in any plebiscite? That's another big question. Well, the people of GB are not asking for any special treatment. They are asking for equality. They want to stand alongside the fellow Pakistanis enjoying the same rights, representation, and dignity. Their demand transcends politics. It's a deep-seated desire for recognition, security, and progress. I don't have to mention it that the people of Gilgit Baltistan have painted their loyalty in blood, guarding Pakistan's border, hosting its flag over their homes, and sacrificing their sons for its defense. I think it's no time to look into this, and I would like this August forum to deliberate on this issue. So what's the way forward? Although the primary demand of GBNs remain full integration with Pakistan, a large number of GBN population has though also welcomed the idea of provisional status as suggested by the Sartaj Aziz Committee. This compromise offers a way forward, aligning the hope of the people of GB with Pakistan's international stance on Kashmir. So the most pragmatic and legally sound path is to implement the Sartaj Aziz Committee's recommendation and the Supreme Court of Pakistan's judgment and grant provincial status to GB with all privileges enshrined in the Constitution. And coming back to the broader question of whether Pakistan should create more provinces, in my view, it doesn't have a clear yes or a categorical no answer. Any reconfiguration must serve the broader goal of national unity and effective governance. Absent these benefits, our focus should be on fortifying the federation through equitable justice, balanced representation, and clear constitutional frameworks. This process should start with the integration of Gilgit Baltistan into Pakistan's constitutional mainstream. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. Now we come to a second participant, Mr. Danial Aziz.
Little clarification. So you said something about the people from Xinjiang having settled in GB. Do we have any data, any number, how many of them?
Well, I don't have a specific data, but they are well known. In Gilgit, there is a whole community of Xinjiangese who live. They live for, I think there's been now 3 or 4 generations now. Because after the Xinjiang moved into Xinjiang.
You can share with us later. Mr. Danial Aziz, your pitch.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, I'd like to thank the Honorable President of IPRI, Ambassador Raza Saab, as well as other colleagues for thinking of me today. I just had a chance to go through this document which was presented to us upon arrival here. So it would have been probably, our contribution could have been more targeted had this been available to us previously. But the concept note, by and large, encompassed a summary of this document also. So what I've seen so far from this document and the discussion is that primarily it's centering around administrative response to Pakistan's service delivery issues, rather than the broader aspect of national unity as addressed by Honorable Ambassador Muhammad Hassan Saab. And also hasn't really delved into the political pros and cons and dynamics of what this possible reorganization could provide. So in my intro then, I'll also reserve my comments to analyzing the administrative outcome in terms of possible improvements of service delivery, as it seems that's the focus. And during the subsequent discussion, if something comes up on the political frame and the national unity frame, then we can take that accordingly. So it's quite obvious that population-wise and politically, administratively, the most important province in Pakistan, comprising 60% of the population, is Punjab. So I'll use that as a frame for analysis. Just to understand briefly, there has been quite a detailed expansion over the years in the administrative units in Punjab. So for example, from 35 districts to now 42 districts, 41 districts, sorry, it makes about a 16% expansion at that administrative tier. And at the tehsil level, you see a very different result in that it's 143 in, I think, 2019 to 152, which is just a 6% increase in at the tehsil administrative level. Whereas at the divisional tier, we have an increase of 20% from 8 divisions to 10 divisions in Punjab. So if you look at this volatility, which is considerable from 6% to 20%, it bespeaks of the political motivations and the political pressures behind creating tehsils and districts. Just to give you one example, recently a division, Gujarat was created, and so also in order to accompany a particular political dispensation at the provincial level, the demands for creating a district or a tehsil have been part of the political process. And it's not something that has been squarely analyzed through administrative grounds only. So this is the extent to which I'll go in terms of the political influence resulting in administrative changes, increase or decrease. So that's to give an emphasis to how important the political side is. But coming back to the administrative side, if we look at the improvements, if you will, in governance or the ease of administration or these beautiful words are used in this document, the wieldiness or unwieldiness of a particular administrative tier, it's something that has a lot to be gotten. So there's a famous saying in governance reform that garbage in is garbage out. So usme, if you look at the resultant outcome, whether it's on things like mundane things like education or agriculture extension or forestry or other things like that, the results are, there's no change actually in the administration or improvement in the administration. If you look at other measures like health and education, etc., you can see that there's been a gradual actual decline over the years to the point where now they're declaring education emergency, health emergency, etc. But if you date back to where these problems originated, I want to take a minute and just explain some of that. Back in the 1960s, there was a preponderance of governance associated with proximity. So having government to be seen and government to be active at the population level was something that occupied the mind of the planners. And nowhere can it be better described than in what is known as the village census. So if you see the village census, in every function of government that it's tracking, it gives you the number of kilometers to a BHU, the number of kilometers to a school, the number of kilometers to a post office, number of kilometers to a police station, number of kilometers to district health, number of formations, et cetera, I can keep on counting. So this preponderance actually is something that captivated the minds of the planners, and it created an unruly expansion in services. So very strange and plucked from the sky statistics. For example, there'll be a BHU in each union council, a basic health unit. And the imagination that somehow Pakistan had the revenues to service that. And so there was a lot of focus on bricks and mortar, and we built the schools, we built the BHUs, we built the things, because that's something that's very, it rubs the administration the right way because there's a lot of contracting involved. But then there's this wonderful thing in the administration called schedule of establishment. And what the schedule of establishment is, it organizes the human resource for each facility. So for example, there is a schedule of establishment for a BHU. This is a standard. How many doctors, how many nurses, how many orderlies, how many cleaning person, how many chowkidar, etc., guard. And similarly for schools, similarly for everything, there's a schedule of establishment. So once you build the building, which is the easy part, then you get to the recurrent expenditures, which are not development side. These are on the recurrent side of the budget. And here's where the problem lies. Once you get to the recurrent side of the budget, this is where the donors walk away. When you're building the BHUs, when you're building the schools, number of population served, kilometers, proximity, all these numbers look fantastic to the donors. And so Pakistan, starving for dollars, in response to being able to secure foreign aid, had to also respond to the policy matrix. And their policy matrix was garnered around this interpretation of development. But when it came to the recurrent expenditures, we had nothing, neither for maintenance, neither for other kinds of things like electric bills or vehicles or gasoline, etc. So many things that bring a unit alive. So when you're traveling next time in the rural areas and you see a livestock center that looks like it was in Khan Yunis in Palestine recently, it looks bombed out, or you see a BHU that looks bombed out, or you see any government facility that's completely decrepit and basically non-functional, you can immediately bring to your mind the idea that what happened to the recurrent expenditure or the recurrent side of the budget. So in this way, what ended up happening is that our service delivery, there was a time when, whether it was health or education, everybody would like to be part of, even in my lifetime when I was very young, everybody would like to be treated in the government hospital. Everybody would like to be going to the government school. There was a standard that these things sort of projected in the Mufassal or the rural areas where they were considered with goodness and betterment and improvement and so on and so forth. Over the years, that's taken a nosedive. And part of the reason has been this massive expansion in facilities that have no recurrent expenditure to back them up. And so you have these ghost schools, you have vacant posts, you have ghost BHUs, you have, basically all trying to skimp on recurrent expenditure that wasn't available to support this proximity analysis-based planning module. And so the system collapsed. Now we have a situation where they're actually trying to merge schools and they're actually trying to merge BHUs because the recurrent expenditures are not justifiable by any measure of providing any governance. So this is what happens when you have centrally planned development. And the centrally planned development actually came about in fits and starts. When the British were in charge, the district was a unit of analysis and action. And the district gazetteer and the 2 or 3 months that were taken on leave by the senior administration was actually to plan and analyze what the requirements were for the district, what could improve its economy, what could improve its law and order, what could improve its socioeconomic background, and then come back and actually employ that. And this was something that finances played a very large role. At that time, this concept of what is now known as development budget didn't really exist. There was the budget that you required for being able to run a good administration, and then what's left over was the development budget. When the donors entered and they wanted to compete during the Cold War with Russia, they forced this concept of the development budget, that how much is the development budget as a percentage of your overall budget. And so this whole ADP and the planning that came with that and these structures, they sort of took over. And the quality of governance took a backseat. And only now, after all these years, the donors have come back to start talking about governance. But the problem is they're ham-handed, they're ham-fisted. Why? Because 99% of the governance decisions take place on the recurrent side of the budget, not on the development side of the budget. When you say the recurrent side of the budget to any donor, it can be DFID or USAID or World Bank, whomsoever, they start literally, and I'm not exaggerating, I mean, you can see they start foaming at the side of the mouth and their eyes turn backwards. They can't calculate, this is the country's responsibility. So how can you improve governance when you're not able to talk about the recurrent side of the budget? And what's the biggest ticket item on the recurrent side of the budget? It's salaries. This is one of the big ticket items on the recurrent side of the budget. So I think I have a few more minutes. I want to come back to the administrative units, but in between there, I want to just leave one point of reference for future research in the other seminars that you're going to have. If the objective is really to improve administration, then Pakistan was operated upon in 1972. The administration was operated upon in 1972. I'm using that as a metaphor. Because oftentimes it happens when you go to the operation theater, you read about this in the newspaper, that somebody came back after having an appendix operation, and 2-3 months later he had a sharp pain in his stomach and fever, and when he went to have an x-ray, they found out that the doctor had left the scissors inside. So now he had to have another operation to remove those scissors in order to get his health back. So what happened to Pakistan in 1972 is no difference. There was a Pay and Pensions Commission that was headed by an Audit and Accounts officer named Mumtaz Hassan. And at that time, Pakistan had 780 scales of pay. And what they were intending to do was to streamline and rationalize the pay structure. And as a response to that, they came up with a formula that had 26 scales of pay. And the 26 scale of pay was set by market research at 4,000 rupees per month. And from that 26 scale of pay cascading downward, they had basic pay scale 1. So this report, initial report draft, was sent to Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Sahab, who at that time was everything to Pakistan. He was chief martial law administrator, he was president, he was head of the political party, and on and on. And he wrote on the file that I want the compression ratio 1:10. Now, for those of you who don't know, the compression ratio is a political empiric that was invented in the late 1800s by the native servants of British India. And what they said basically was that we do all the work and the Europeans get all of the pay. And so to express the extent of their injury, the compression ratio was simply the ratio between the highest paid employee in a department and the lowest paid employee in a department. So the higher this ratio was, the more they were injured. Unko sare paise milte hain aur kaam sara hum karte hain. So Bhutto Sahab wrote on the file, I want the compression ratio 1:10. When the Pay and Pensions Commission got this comment, they, of course, were flabbergasted. And they wrote back saying that, please, we'll destroy the services, don't do this. Even in Russia, where communism came from, the ratio between the seaman and the captain in the Navy of Russia is 1:99. So even where communism came from, why are we doing this? This is going to destroy the services. And Bhutto Sahab didn't like to take no for an answer, and the file came back simply by stating that, all right, if you can't do it, I'll do it for you. And he deleted grade 23, 24, 25, and 26. ये पंच लाइन था मैं दोबारा
That was very important. Sorry.
So he simply
No more interruption. Okay.
I'm almost done. He simply deleted grade 23, 24, 25, and 26. And so this is how we got 22 grades in Pakistan. Even today, हमने जोर से वो रस्सी थामी हुई है. रूस टूट गया है, चीन हट गया है, क्यूबा भाग गया, सब हमने पकड़ी हुई है 22 ग्रेड वाली. तो उसमें मतलब कम्युनिज्म पैसे हो गया ना किसी हद तक. तो खैर, just to give you an idea of the scale, the 26th scale was 4,000 rupees, and on that scale, the 22nd grade was 1275 rupees. So they took a massive haircut at the top executive level. And the reason I'm saying this is that you're not going to be able to fix that with NAB. You're not going to be able to fix it with Ihtisab Bureau. You're not going to be able to fix it with anti-corruption departments. This is not something you can police away by inquiry, investigation, and other things. When you completely turn the incentive structure on its head and corruption actually becomes the system rather than the exception, then you have a very different disease that cannot be policed away. You have to restructure the incentive system. And so what I think that, in conclusion, what I think that needs to be discussed and talked about is not the horizontal expansion of administrative units. I've already given you examples of the expansion of administrative units from Tehsil to district to division in province like Punjab, and the result is before us. It's actually the vertical distribution of authority and responsibility and finances that is going to make your administrative realm much improved or not. And therefore, if you look at, or if you like to study the Provincial Finance Commission of Punjab or any province as an example, when they were introduced, what was the distribution of resources at Union Council, at Tehsil, and at district? And what is it today? and see how that's skewing backwards from there to a very centralized distribution of resources, क्योंकि इसमें जिक्र है थोड़ा कि नए सूबों की financing क्या होगी. So the point that I'm trying to make is that tyranny from Lahore can easily turn into tyranny from Multan or Bhaulpur or Pindi or wherever. It doesn't matter. What matters is how you are going to empower the local level at district and below. And that actually is going to be, your turning point. So the kinds of things that I'm mentioning in terms of the recurrent side of the budget, are you going to be able to allow them to make decisions at the local level? Can they hire people for salary structures that are different in Lahore than they are in, let's say, Multan or in Bhaulpur? What would those changes look like? Can they have that level of autonomy? When you have these centralized planning systems and cross-district, cross-division facilities like irrigation, like forestry, like, for example, livestock or many other things, you by creating new administrative divisions, you unnecessarily complicate those things. Just look at the water discourse between Punjab and Sindh, for example. Now you multiply that by another, 9, 10, etc. So on an administrative level, if that's really the intent, you're going to have to weigh how much bang you're getting for your buck. I mean, does it even make sense? Is the administration going to improve? And I think that at the political level and at the national unity level, we can have that conversation subsequently. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And a very important takeaway that political devolution alone is not sufficient. The classic dilemma in our merged districts, which were erstwhile FATA, they have been politically devolved, but they are not fiscally devolved. And the recurrent expenditure is a pointer in that direction. Very ably pointed out that we should see also the actual benefits of issues that cause discord, like the water issue, cross-district issues like forestry, etc. But we'll discuss more on that. And next participant is Mr. Naveed Kashif. Your quick pitch, sir, so that we go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador Raza, and thank you everyone for initiating a discussion on such an important topic. I have certain talking points. Pakistan is 77 years old. It shall be 78 in another 6 months or so. The central object of every state, the reason why it exists, is to ensure and promote the welfare of its citizens in different forms and areas. It is therefore perfectly fair to measure the performance of Pakistan by this universally applied yardstick. There are many international surveys that are treated with great respect around the world. There are also many national surveys that we know tell us the truth. But be these Millennium Development Goals or the Sustainable Development Goals, the Human Development Indicators are key measures of social justice and service delivery, the reality remains grim. Pakistan currently ranks 137th out of 167 nations on the Sustainable Development Goals Index and stands at 164th out of 191 on the Human Development Index, a stark reminder of our struggle for development and welfare of our people. On the rule of law index, Pakistan is positioned at 129th out of 142, reflecting a governance structure that remains fragile and inconsistent. Our health and nutrition crises are equally alarming. With 44% of children suffering from stunted growth, Pakistan is among the worst affected nations in terms of malnutrition. The country ranked 109th out of 127 on the Global Hunger Index, while access to safe drinking water remains at a dismal 38%, the lowest in the South Asia. In the education sector, the numbers are just as bleak. Pakistan has over 25 million out-of-school children or so. the second highest in the world, the second highest in the world. Literacy, quality of education, and employment opportunities continue to lag behind, depriving millions of a brighter future. These figures clearly depict that Pakistan cannot be held up as an example that shines. Our population is exploding, our indebtedness is deepening, and despite being an agriculture nation, we are still food insecure. We possess one of the most elaborate irrigation networks in the world, yet we continue to suffer from severe water scarcity. The list of where we have consistently fallen short is extremely long and deeply concerning. But if I continue down this path, I may never arrive at why we have been gathering here. The reasons for Pakistan's abysmal performance are many, but if one reason were to be named that is fundamentally responsible for Pakistan's failing its citizen, it is its governance. Why governance in Pakistan has consistently been poor, it also has a lot of reasons. The principal among these reasons is the size of its provinces to our understanding, which is sub-national units that share sovereignty with the federation. Do we realize that the 4 provinces of Pakistan remain exactly as they were in 1947? While any other countries existed in exactly the same administrative form for 77 years, it's a question. Federations across the world have continually evolved and adopted their administrative structures for better governance. The United States has now, starting from 50 states for a population of 330 million. Germany, with just 80 million people, is divided into 16 federal states. Canada, with a population of just 40 million, has 10 provinces and 3 territories. Even Australia, with only 26 million people, is divided into 6 states and 2 territories. Yet in Pakistan, we have remained blind to such towering realities. It is as if we are refusing to acknowledge the elephant in the room. We have even failed to notice that even one federating unit is more populous than the total population of the remaining 3 federating units. Why do countries keep creating new, fully empowered administrative units? It is because as population grows, the state must expand its reach to serve more people effectively. In Pakistan, however, we are refusing to acknowledge this necessity. Consider the dramatic population growth. Punjab has surged from 20.6 million in 1951 to over 127 million today. Sindh from 6 million to 55 million, KPK from 5.8 million to 40 million, and Baluchistan from 1 million to 15 million. To put this into perspective, Punjab, with a population exceeding 127 million, outnumbers 182 countries across the globe. Sindh, with over 55 million people, surpasses the population of 162 nations worldwide. KPK, with a population exceeding 40 million, is larger than 152 countries in the world. Baluchistan, vast and expansive, covers an area greater than that of 172 sovereign states. Given these staggering figures, it is for sure that the governance of such immense populations and territories would obviously be hard not to crack. Over the past 77 years, Pakistan's governance structure has witnessed creation of more divisions, more districts, and tehsils. However, despite these structural adjustments, a fundamental question remains: why cannot creating new civil divisions, districts, tehsils serve the same purpose as creating new provinces? It is because these administrative units are not sufficiently empowered, because all the important decisions for the citizens are taken at the provincial level. The administrative units we need must share sovereignty with the federation for a healthy balance. These units must be able to make their own laws, have their own judiciary, have their own governments, should levy and collect their own taxes. These administrative units should be accountable to the citizen living within their boundaries and should have all the means necessary for delivering on their obligations. what we are recommending and why. We must remember that we have a long history of movements demanding separate provinces, including Saraiki province movement, Bahawalpur province movement, Hazara province movement, Potohar province movement, Mohajar Suba movement, etc. We want to stay clear of these movements. We are not seeking any separation from any province. We do not want to and must not raise sleeping demons. We are seeking new provinces because these shall administer more efficiently, because this shall enhance participation and multiply the economic, socio-political opportunities. This will bring decision-making nearer to the citizens. This shall breed new political leadership in every new province. It shall develop new towns that have forever remained intermediate. New provinces shall reach out to areas that have always been left behind, that have seldom received the attention that these have deserved. We have therefore recommended in our proposal, which is in front of all of you, sir, that we will have to go back to 1972. We should convert civil divisions of 1972 into new provinces. This means that the present Punjab shall be divided into 5 new provinces, the present Sindh into 3, the present KP into 3, and the Baluchistan into 2 new provinces. The present 4 provinces shall thus be divided into 13 provinces. Islamabad shall continue to be federally administered. Why have we not recommended these at the present civil divisions level? This is because there have been new divisions and districts during the past 77 years created for less than strong objective reasons. Also because we have to ensure that the new provinces comprise reasonable areas and populations. Our proposal attempts to show how the recommendations made by us shall be translated on ground in terms of population, area, financial resources, important constitutional institutions like judiciary, legislature, the executive. Our proposal also shows, inter alia, the composition of a 16-department secretariat. Now, every secretariat enjoys more than 30 plus departments, administrative departments. A large enough divisional infrastructure already exists at each divisional headquarters in the form of buildings and human resource of each sector. This will be very easily converted into a provincial department. The secretariat of each province shall be small and allied departments will be giant, just as these used to exist in the 1950s and 1960s. The strength of judges of each high court can be divided in a ratio worked out 50% on the basis of population and 50% on the basis of pendency of cases from that area. The subordinate judiciary is already in place. It shall in future be supervised from a nearby high court. The legislature will be divided on the basis of provincial constituencies falling within each new province. The provincial consolidated fund of each existing province can be divided among the new provinces by a formula that gives 50% for population and 50% for area. We have shared our proposal with all of you. We have tried to show using data of federal and provincial governments that the new provincial governments we propose shall be born financially sound. These will have sufficient financial resources and the potential for raising more resources. These shall have adequate bureaucratic infrastructures, smaller but more efficient government departments, judiciaries, and legislatures. Ours is an in-house study that our chairman, Mr. Mahmood, led over the past few years, who is an anxious and concerned citizen owing to what he sees. We think that what we have proposed is perfectly workable at its birth and has the potential for growing into a robust system of governance over time. Pakistan stands at crossroads. We can choose stagnation and inertia, or we can choose transformation. We can cling to outdated structures or embrace modern governance. The latter is the way forward for a more equitable, efficient, and prosperous Pakistan. We are all aware of the challenges, but now is the time to confront them with wisdom, resilience, and unwavering commitment from all the concerned stakeholders. Not gold, but only men can make a people great and strong. It is our people, their opportunities, and their empowerment that will define our future. On behalf of our chairman, Mia Amar Mahmood, I sincerely thank you all and deeply appreciate your interest.
Thank you.
Your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Naveed. And the pearl of high price that we are chasing here is economy and efficiency. If these two elements are not incorporated, then all initiatives of creating any new setup will come a cropper. What Mr. Daniel said, that the provinces got all the powers, but those powers have not been fiscally devolved down to the local government level, and therein lies our Achilles heel. Whatever Mr. Naveed has mentioned entails a complete reimagining and re-engineering of the whole constitutional transition from a federal polity to a unitary polity. If we have the appetite, stamina and resilience, I think we can take the journey. And then, sir, a quick recap, Mr. Ishtiaq, and I will request all the participants to keep the initial pitch confined to the time limit so that we have time for discussion later. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think we have gathered here to discuss a very important issue, which has been debated for a very long time, and I hope that by the end of these discussions, some clarity and clear vision would emerge as what really needs to be done. Because if we can't evolve with some clarity in this gathering, probably it will be difficult, because this has been under discussion for a very long time. So I'll start with the thesis statement taken from the literature on governance, which says that all state institutions and governance structures are created under a particular set of circumstances to meet certain needs, to meet certain demands, and with the passage of time, with the changed circumstances, these institutions, as the new demands emerge, as the new pressures emerge, as the new requirements emerge, these institutions, governance structures, also need to adapt according to the new circumstances, new needs. And if they don't, they tend to lose their utility. Those institutions which adapt themselves, they survive. The rest become obsolete and they become irrelevant. I feel this argument can also be applied to this very important issue regarding creation of new provinces, because it also pertains to governance. As we all know, that these 4 provinces were created back in 1947 at the time of partition under a particular set of circumstances. 78 years have passed. New needs, new demands, new pressures have developed. New requirements have emerged. And during these 78 years, I think a lot of water has flowed down the Indus. So it's important that we need to take a fresh look at the current geographical division of the country into 4 provinces. Now, the second question is, as I said, this has been a very long-standing debate. A lot of promises have been made by political elite to the people that they would create new provinces. But till today, these promises remain unfulfilled. So how to proceed, how to develop clarity on this issue? I think what we can do is, we can examine the arguments in favor of this demand. We can take a look at the arguments against this demand, and then we can draw a conclusion. And then finally, we can suggest the way forward as what really needs to be done. So, the arguments in favor of this demand. As has already been mentioned, the population factor. Punjab alone is larger than 196 countries of the world. out of 206 countries of the world, it is larger than 196. So that justifies that this province needs to be, divided into smaller geographical units. Likewise, in terms of area, as has been mentioned, Baluchistan, 1/3 of Pakistan, it's probably larger than 130 countries of the world. So that also justifies that this should also be, divided. Now, arguments, what are the arguments against this demand? One is that if we create new provinces, it would incur a lot of expenditure, a lot of administrative costs and expenditures, and it would result in enhanced bureaucracy. The second argument against it is that it might call for redrawing of boundaries and redistribution of existing infrastructures. The third is the apprehension is that creation of new provinces might also weaken national unity in some way. And that would be due to enhanced regionalism. So that factor also needs to be taken into account. Now, what are the proposals regarding creation of new provinces? One is, as has been mentioned in the concept paper, that we can declare the existing administrative divisions into provinces, 31. Another proposal is that we should create 14 to 16 provinces by merging 2 or 3 administrative divisions having common features, and it would be about 14 to 16 provinces. The third proposal is that converting the existing districts into provinces, as is the case in many other countries as well. Now we can also examine as to what are the obstacles in the way of meeting this demand. As I see it, the main hurdle is the regional political forces, regional political elites, who see this demand as a threat to their regional politics. This is, I think, is one of the major causes, major hurdle. The second is that is coming to the national level parties. The national elite, which have been ruling this country for the past 30 to 40 years, they want concentration of political powers, administrative powers, and financial resources in the present centers of power at the provincial headquarters. So there's a lack of political commitment on part of these national parties as well as regional parties. And I think that is a major hurdle which needs to be overcome if we want to create. Now, what is the way forward? What's the way forward? One proposal could be that, as this is a highly politically sensitive issue, we should constitute a commission which should consult all the stakeholders, all the political parties, the media, the experts, and then this national commission should submit a report to the parliament, because ultimately it's the parliament which has to take a decision. But as I see it, the history of these commissions, the past history of these commissions is not very enviable. And probably I feel that would be probably mere waste of time. So what's the next option? The next option is that, as has been mentioned in this IPRI's report, the final recommendation that emerged in this report, this should be submitted to the government, and then the government should take it to the parliament, and the Parliament should constitute a joint parliamentary committee to discuss this issue threadbare in the Parliament. It should also consult all the stakeholders, the media, intellectuals, experts, and then take a final decision regarding creation of new provinces. And I feel that this probably is the most viable option. I can I can say it on the basis of my own personal experience as Secretary Election Commission. We felt that probably there was a need to carry out a lot of reforms in the existing election laws. So we constituted an election in the Election Commission a committee which worked for a year. It prepared a report, its recommendations, and after 2013 elections, the famous election that you are aware of, 2013 elections, the Parliament constituted a joint parliamentary committee comprising about 11 senators and 15 members of the National Assembly. And I submitted this report, our recommendations to this joint parliamentary committee. Actually, I remained associated with this committee for 2-3 months, before my retirement from the Election Commission. And this was 2014. Then, on the basis of this report, this joint parliamentary committee continued its work for 2-3 years, and as a result, the Election Act 2017 was passed, which is still in the field. And recent elections have also been held on the basis of that law. So what I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to say is that this issue has been discussed for the past so many decades. This should not be another sitting, that nothing should come out of it. Some concrete proposals, should come out, some clarity should emerge. And I think the best way is to take this matter to the Parliament, a joint parliamentary committee, and then the Parliament should decide as to what needs to be done. I think another serious obstacle in the way of meeting this demand has been lack of very serious effort, actually. And this, as far as I know, probably this is the first time that this initiative has been taken by IPRI. So the credit goes to IPRI for taking the first step. And as they say, a 1,000-mile journey begins with the first step. I think the first step has been taken. And my request to IPRI and all those behind this initiative would be to complete this journey, not to stop in the midway, because this is a very important issue. And I also feel that, as they say, nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. I think time has come for materialization of this idea as well after 78 years. And I think just 1 or 2 more minutes before concluding this discussion. We have discussed, various options, but the basic purpose of creating new provinces is decentralization of political administrative powers and transfer of resources from present centers of power from the provincial capitals to the districts. We all would agree that that is the basic objective, because the people of Pakistan, they live in the districts. These 25 crore people don't live in the provincial capitals. They live far away from these centers of power, and looking at the magnitude of the problems they face on a daily basis, I think there's no other option but to transfer political, administrative powers as well as financial resources to the district. Now, how we can do that, sir? Now, one is to constitute a commission, as I said. Another option is to constitute a joint parliamentary committee, and then wait for, for a year or 2 years. I doubt whether anything concrete would come out of that. But an option is still, option is available in the existing constitution. Probably nobody has paid much attention to that. And that is Article 140A of the Constitution. I would request all to please focus on this issue, because the basic purpose of decentralization of powers and transfer of resources can be achieved through the Article 140A. And what it states, the Constitution makes it mandatory for the provincial governments to hold regular local government elections and transfer political administrative powers as well as financial resources to the elected representatives of the local governments. And this is the basic objective, actually. Why are we creating new provinces? Because the basic objective is to transfer of powers from the provincial capitals to the districts. Because the people of Pakistan, they are really in a miserable conditions. If you look at the magnitude of the problems and the problem they have to face on a daily basis. So there's a need to empower these people so that they could solve these problems at their doorsteps. Let's empower them. And this is the model which has been, practiced in many countries, in China and in other countries. And I think this is the way out. Before concluding, I would also like to mention a very inspiring book written by Mr. Javed Jabal. And I'm referring to it because this is relevant to this issue. And it is titled, What is Pakistaniyat? Pakistaniyat kya hai? And he has enumerated 41 elements of Pakistaniyat, Pakistani national identity. I would like to quote 5 or 6 elements because I feel these are relevant to this discussion. Mr. Jawar, he says, one element is proud to be part of tribes and classes residing on lands which became part of Pakistan's territory in 1947. Second, pride in belonging to a beautiful country, rich of Urdu as a national lingua franca, while also speaking a range of other national, regional languages and dialects. 4, moving towards a new Pakistani ethnic identity. This is very important. We are moving toward a new Pakistani ethnic identity, where there are other identities, ethnic identities. We are moving toward this new, relatively new identity, but this is very firmly rooted now. And then pride in being part of intangibly exclusive persona called Pakistani. And finally, regardless of prevailing and persistent problems, a blind faith in a stable future for Pakistan. What I'm trying to say is that all those people who oppose creation of new provinces, like regional political elites who have their own interests or other elements, they see it as a threat to their political base. Then they mislead people mislead people by saying that it is a threat to their, ethnic identities. Whereas I see that for the existing ethnic identities, they are like, I'm just one minute, I'm just concluding. But I couldn't help it actually. That these regional identities, they are like beautiful flowers in the bouquet of a larger Pakistani identity. So they should not be scared. And we all should, while we can retain our existing ethnic identities, we should work toward the Pakistani identity. And personally, sir, finally, the bottom line, personally, I feel I am proud to be just a Pakistani, call myself to be a Pakistani, regardless of wherever I live and what's the name of my province. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You see, identity construction, the last word, it's a very interesting formulation. Pak-Afghan border that we know today is a border because the conquest of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, formalized in the way of British administrative scheme during line, and then in 1901 NWFP came up. In 2010 it evolved into KPK. Point I'm trying to make is the echoes of Edward Said. He coined a trinity: history, politics, sociology. This trinity needs to be kept into mind while evolving your own politics, because it is in the intersection of politics and administration that this new province discourse is taking place. You gave a very important takeaway, sir, the pathway. Actually, it is the bailiwick of parliament, so it has to go to there. How it goes there, that's a process. So we'll come back to that in a while, sir. And now our next participant for his discourse, Mr. Shakil Durrani.
Thank you, sir. I think I have my priorities right, Jay. I would do that, sir. Let me sort of swim against the tide. I think that if the purpose of creating more provinces is better administration and improved governance, then the last thing you need to do is to increase the number of provinces, because there's no logical connection between the two. Improved administration and improved governance is really what is called good governance now, is fair rules fairly applied. Now for that, what you need is efficient and effective governance, a very energetic governance, especially at the level of the district. And Mr. Danial Aziz did mention, the districts are dead. They are dying and they are dead post-devolution plan. I think we'll be moving on to the wrong path if we feel that we can improve governance by creating more. We must realize that provinces exist today mainly for historic reasons, and mainly for ethnicity and common language. The Punjab province, it might have been under the Duranis, and under the Mughals, and under the Sikhs, and under the British, but the province was generally the same. Baluchistan, for the last 500 years, is a province by itself, with the Khan of Kalat. Sindh with the Talpurs. The frontier, KP, it was at times part of Kabul province, but even the Mughals treated it separately. So it has nothing to do with improved governance. What you need for improved governance is, as I said, fair rules fairly applied and strict accountability. In Pakistan today, there is zero accountability. Rising from the president to the prime minister to the ministers, governors, everyone, the deputy commissioners, the IGs, the DPOs, no one, the Tanedars in particular, the Patwaris in particular, the judiciary in particular, no one can put any question to any one of them, and you have seen the results. Now, when you want to, I'll just in the passing also mention the merger of FATA. I've spent 1/3 of my life in the tribal areas. You know, I was in favor of merger. I'm still in favor of merger. But the way it has been managed is a disaster. The people are angry. The people are frustrated. Thanks to the Civil Procedure Code and the Criminal Procedure Code and the district and session judges that we have, and the way the high courts and the Supreme Court function in this country. Rivaj. We need a Rivaj code of conduct, a Rivaj code of procedure. And believe me, between the FCR and the US jury, there's very little difference. Neither in the FCR cases nor in the US jury does the jury decide the case. They only make recommendations. In both cases, it could be remanded. In both cases, you can object to the membership. But why is it that we would decide a criminal case or a civil case, maybe in 2 hearings, 3 hearings, never more than that, is the political agent Mohammed sitting over here, Ishtiaq. Now, it takes forever. In Waziristan, there's one case involving land on which there were 18 adjournments, 19 adjournments, till the tribe got together and he said, okay, if anyone now goes to the civil courts, we are going to burn his house. And in 18 or 19 adjournments, each party paid 1 lakh rupee to the wakil. So then they got inter-tribal jargah, and do you know something? On the second day, they resolved it. So we are just playing with the people. And as I said, and it might not be very fashionable to say that, but I'm going to say it all the same. No one is accountable in the services. No one. The only accountability that I have seen effective is in the military. And I'm going to quote you an example. I really wanted to quote this example. In 2003, I was chief secretary. It was not KP then, it was NFP. And the GOC of 9 Div in South Waziristan ordered an operation late in the evening, whereas the Frontier Warfare Manual says every operation has to be first 2 hours before the first light. He did not consult the political agent. He did not carry a jargah with him, because we always carry a jargah with us whenever we have an operation. The result was that 8 of our people were killed, military people. And so the political agent, Mia Safed Shah, called me at 2:30 at the night, and he said, this is what's happened. So I called the IGFC, Tajul Haq, and then the Corps Commander, Ali Amijano Rizai, and then the Governor, General Iftikhar, and he said, this is what's happened. And I complained, I wrote a written report. 48 hours later, the GOC was removed. The commandant, the brigade commander was removed. The commandant SWS was removed. In 3 months, they were sacked from the army. Now that is accountability, which never happened in the civil. And if you think that these politicians are accountable, they are the least accountable. In any case, who benefits most from creation of new districts and division and provinces? The professional politicians and the bureaucrats, people like me. We benefit. The number of openings are made available for us. You think Gujarat would have been a division had Parvez Ali not been the chief minister? Never. There are 10 divisions over there. You know, I just like to quote you one set of figures which I checked up the net in preparation for your seminar. The KP's budget this year is 1.75 trillion. Trillion is 12 zeros. Its own receipts are only 93 billion. And the current non-development expenditure is 1.3 trillion. Whatever it gets from the federal government and its own generation, almost entirely it's spent on non-development. The development budget, they quote a higher figure, by the end of the year, it keeps being reduced, is less than 25%. And the more that you create non-development expenditures, the more it benefits me, the bureaucrat, and the professional politicians. He was Deputy Commissioner Chitral, Ishtiaq, and I was there also. But I was Deputy Commissioner Chitral, which is my favorite posting anyway. Chitral is by far the best that we have in this country, in my view. So there were 4 officers in Chitral district. One deputy commissioner, two ACs, one EAC. Today there are 18 officers. And I asked someone in Chitral, ये लोग क्या करते हैं? कहते जी सारा दिन वीगो पे भागते रहते हैं. तो you know, जी डॉलर जी हाँ. मैं ये कह रहा हूँ जी कि before one unit, or after one unit also, there were 3 divisions in KP, Dera Ismail Khan, Peshawar, and political agent Malakand Agency controlled Malakand Agency and Dir Chitral and Swat. And there were 5 tribal agencies. Now there are 32. Who benefits? I benefit. You know, so I have a dollar, I have this, I have that, I have a police escort. Each time you post a SP or a DIG, you know, that means another 8 or 10 or 15 policemen are then there for his either his security or a part of his staff. This would not do. I think, as I said, we know how to, what is good governance. We need to focus on 3 things. Daniel Aziz Saab has mentioned it, and Ishtaq also. You know, today, as I said, the districts, if not dead, are dying, thanks to the what is this program? Devolution program. The Patwar, the Thana, the Kacheri, nothing works over there. You add to this the municipalities and the basic needs. You go and see the hospitals, or if you have a sore throat in Kohat or Banu, you have to come to Peshawar. Because there's nothing over there. And there's no accountability either. So I think let us focus on what is better governance and try and improve that. And rather than debating ideas like this, you know, population and area have no relevance to creation of new states. Do you know, sir, I mean, all of you would have heard of it. In America, every state sends 2 reps to the Senate and congressmen in proportion to their population. 7 American states, including Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Alaska, and 3 others, they only send 1 representative to the House of Representatives. 1. California sends 55. New York sends about 50, because that is the disparity in the population rate. So no one has ever said that, you know, split California into 5 so that it is at par with Wyoming or North Dakota. So it's just historic reasons, basically ethnicity, which is so important. And I end by saying that, you know, when we live together, people of let's say different languages or different ethnicities, you know, we develop a friendship just as we develop friendships in schools and colleges and military units. You know, there is some diversity within the provinces, and we develop friendships, we develop allegiances. Now, this would also go if we had watertight divisions, which really serve very little purpose, if any. I'll just end at that. But again, I'll just sort of re-emphasize that is the Patwar, the Thana, the Kacheri, the basic needs, which has to be focused upon, rather than creating something which is going to add to the non-development expenditure. There is, as far as development expenditure is concerned, see the quality of our lives of people. The KP has 53% of the girls are out of school. In Baluchistan and Sindh, something like 65 to 68% of the girls are out of school. Punjab, only for 53% of the girls are in school. So we should be focusing on these things rather than on issues which are not too relevant. Thank you, sir.
Sir, fresh vignettes thrown by a practitioner, though contrarian, but very valuable insights, sir. But something very interesting that these structures, political and administrative structures, evolve. The Britain is a constitutional monarchy, and its Westminster polity serves as Wade Maycomb for us. We followed that. why we could not come up with a constitution or the administrative arrangement which was in sync with our own nationalistic indigenous needs, still a debate taking place. And we'll keep debating. The Britain has, sir, around 38 counties which are historical shires, and they have 84, if I'm correct, metropolitan and non-metropolitan counties. And in those counties, those are just equivalent to our districts, and all the powers are devolved in a multi-tiered manner. So perhaps there are models that we can discuss in sync with our needs. So we come to the oracle now, sir, if I'm not too presumptuous. So Mr. Awais Ghani is no stranger to the corridors of power also, governance also. I would like to be enlightened by you, sir.
Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm grateful to IPRI for this opportunity, bringing all of us together to discuss a very important subject. I'm not a great scholar or an intellectual or something, but I'm a practitioner, and a practitioner in management. The best part of my life, 30 years, I've been a mechanical engineer managing factories and workers, and I learned the fundamentals of management there. And then in the public sector, I've been for 2 years as provincial minister, 1 year as federal, 7.5 years as governor, 4.5 years in Baluchistan, 3 years in KPK and WFP, in a period of great turmoil, which was of certain benefit to me because due to a default, I was burdened with the administration of those provinces. And I got to perform a role much bigger, or rather completely outside my constitutional mandate as governor. As a starting point, I would like to state that I am against the creation of new provinces. In fact, I am dead against the creation of new provinces, because one of the fundamentals of management that I learned, and the experience that I had in the provinces, also in different positions, was that for efficiency, for good management, the organization has to be a lean organization. The more big it becomes and bloated it becomes, inefficiencies creep in. There are, of course, costs increase and become unsustainable. But the greatest thing is that accountability suffers. If there are a few individuals, you can keep an eye on all of them and hold them to account, and also demand performance from them. But if there are too many, then what I call the parasites, they hide within the system, and you cannot hold them responsible. An example I would give is that since I worked in military governments also and with political governments also, my experience has been that military governments give better governance. And the reason is that they work with very small cabinets, few ministers. I recall that in WFP we had 5, 6 ministers. At the maximum were 10, 12. And in the federal cabinet, if I recall, when I was a member, I was only 17. So everybody was known, and everybody knew what he had to do, what was his sphere, and everybody could keep an eye on him. How is he performing? And in contrast, when you come to political governments, you had 80, 85, including Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which had come on the campaign stance of improving governance and giving efficient government. They had very big cabinets also, which is, they say, is a political majboori. There's no thing as majboori, but they wanted, okay, fine. And I totally agree with what Durrani Sahib has said, that more provinces, actually the attraction is to politicians and to bureaucrats, because it gives them more perks, privileges, positions, etc. I worked as governor in 2 provinces. Let me tell you, if you look at the system entirely from the management point of view, I think the position of governor is redundant. You just need one head in the provinces. You actually don't need the governor. This is a hangover from the British period, because when they were giving political space to the natives, they wanted to maintain a certain control, so that the governor was there and he had the veto power over everybody. And we have continued with that for whatever reason. Now, when I received the invitation from IPRI, they said that the subject was creation of new provinces for the improvement of administration and governance. And I assumed that by administration they mean the bureaucratic system, and by governance they mean the political governance, the political structure. According to the fundamentals of management, these structures, if we want them to deliver and to become more efficient, we have to reduce their size, not increase their size. Because I agree with one statement in this paper, which is, it shall be well nigh impossible to deny that governance in Pakistan has been an unqualified failure. This is one statement I totally agree with. And what are we trying to do? A system, a political administrative system, which has proved repeatedly dysfunctional in that it has failed to meet the minimum expectations of giving us good leadership, competent leadership, and good governance, repeatedly failed in spite of so many opportunities given it, whose weakness has provided the space for military intervention. I've been professional technocrat. I bring an impartial and unprejudiced view on that. Military governments are not the answer. I've been part of it. But they are more efficient. And there are reasons for that. They work with, as I said, a small cabinet. And then they are under pressure to perform because they have a legitimacy problem, and they try to make that up through better governance. And for that, they bring in technocrats like myself and others who have a track record in their own field of competency, and ask them to perform and give them the support and space to perform. And that is why, if you see, military governments have always been good on governance. So they have failed politically, of course. My own ideas on improvement of governance, since I was involved and I did some innovation there. If you recall, we had a thing called Provincial Apex Committee. It started in NWFP, we started it. And I had practiced that informally in Baluchistan, but formally through an administrative order in NWFP, KPK. Later on, it was then replicated in Baluchistan, quite also in Karachi, the Provincial Apex Committees. And that was an initiative based on what I called collective governance, in which important critical matters are not left or not exposed or, let's say, insulated from the whims and weaknesses of individual leaders, whether political or military. And this is where our weakness lies in governance. We need to insulate all important matters from the whims and weaknesses of individual leaders. And for that, you need a forum. And it worked very well. The Provincial Apex Committees were the ones we were able to organize our fight back against the insurgencies and the terrorism. And everybody knows in 2.5 years, we achieved a lot of success. Although the Americans, including Petraeus and all that, said to me that it takes 20 to 25 years to control an insurgency, and I told him we'll do it in 2.5, 3 years. And then after 2.5, 3 years, they came and said, you guys have done it. I said, yes, we have done it, but don't try to replicate what we did. Because everything has to be designed according to the local environment and local conditions. Therefore, while I have been hearing all of you quote from India has done this and America does that and all that, we have to look for our own solutions according to our own environment. You see, we have our discussions. Normally, the frame of reference for our discussions on such subjects is one, the British system, because of our colonial past, and also India. India ye kar raha hai, wo kar raha hai. But let me tell you, research, being an engineer, our approach is very systematic, so I have analyzed historical data. History and geography have divided the Indian subcontinent into 4 major geopolitical regions. The Ganga-Jamuna River region, the Bengal Delta region, south of India, the Deccan Plateau, south of the Satpuras and Vindhyas mountain ranges, and the Indus River region. And each has followed its own geopolitical trajectory, different from the others. And I'll give you one example, one data only about the Indus River region. Of 2,600 years of recorded history, the Indus River region has been combined by force of arms with the rest of the subcontinent for only 9% of history, 238 years. 30 years under Ashoka, 68 years under the Tughlaq, the Delhi Sultanate, 40 years under Aurangzeb's Mughal Empire, 98 years under the British. The historical constant has been that the hegemon who have combined these geopolitical regions together have always had their base in the Ganga-Jamuna region, always, apart from the Kushans who were based in Peshawar. And whenever this hegemon weakened, invariably in history, the Indus River region was the first to break away as an independent region for 90+% of history. I have written a small essay on this. The last time it happened was in 1947 AD, when the British Empire, the hegemon, based in the Ganga-Jamuna region, was drastically weakened by World War I and World War II, could not hold on to its foreign possessions, and the Indus River region broke away immediately. This was entirely in line with the historical geopolitical trends of this region. Bangladesh, we keep on, using the stick we beat ourselves with it all the time, Bangladesh. The Bengal Delta region has remained a separate geopolitical zone throughout history. In 1947 AD, it also achieved freedom, but it joined Pakistan in a federation, widely separated geographically. And after 26 years, after a brief civil war, in which the Bengal Delta region was helped by a very large Hindu army from the Ganga-Jamuna River region, the traditional rival of the Indus River region, the Bengal Delta region separated and became Bangladesh. But it did not go back into India because its geopolitical, historical character is different. So let us not beat ourselves with that stick. I get a little annoyed when everybody says, "Oh, toot diya Pakistan." Pakistan nahi toota tha. It was never supposed to be like that. This Pakistan that has been made in 1947 AD, agar Pakistan na hota, koi aur naam hota. But it had to be, it would have evolved, it would come up on the map as a separate state. And this is what it is today. So look for our own solutions. Yes, okay, it's done. Follow the principles of management, which is lean and efficient organization. I would like to have an opinion of these experienced bureaucrats, because I think the district, which was always the key administrative unit, has become a little unwieldy because of the increase in populations. And I think it is time we consider making the tehsil as the key administrative unit, and to improve the political administration dovetailing, because you cannot separate these two. let's say, organs of government, the political and administration from each other. They are very closely related. What I sincerely recommend to simplify the system by making the tehsil as the constituency for the MPA. And let the MPA wear two hats. And I can then elaborate it at some other time. That he is the MPA, but as an MPA, he will also be the chairman of the tehsil council. This way, your local government will become strong and it will be owned by the mainstream politicians, because the mainstream politicians resist local government because they consider them as rivals for funding and power and all that, whatever. My recommendation would be, instead of divisions or districts, please focus on the tehsil. All this is, like I said, I am not a scholar or an intellectual, but this is based on my practical experience in government, the administration that. And I think for the moment, this is enough. We can talk about details later. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Most important takeaway is that lean governance is the need of the hour, and the reforms in the local government system. Now, our next participant is Ms. Zubaida Jalal. She has been a practitioner and former federal minister. I'd like to be enlightened by her.
Thank you, sir. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'll try to confine myself to Baluchistan and, the situation in Baluchistan, and specifically I'll discuss the potential pros and, cons of it all. But let me also say, as Awais Ghani Saab mentioned just now, that discussing provinces within Baluchistan is not timely yet. It's a very complex and sensitive issue when we look at the environment in Baluchistan. But still, I jotted down the pros and cons. And as Daniel said, the most important, and my other colleagues also, is the improved governance itself. So smaller administrative units, yes, can lead to more efficient governance and better service delivery, as local authorities are more familiar with the specific needs of their areas. Then when we talk about, it's also one of the pros would be the enhanced representation. New provinces could give marginalized ethnic groups or regions more political representation and a greater voice in decision making also. Now, if you look at the National Assembly, within the 342 reps in the National Assembly, only 12 are from Baluchistan. And within those 12, the parties are also not united, even if we talk about issues about Baluchistan coming up in the National Assembly itself. Then the whole issue of resource management, yes, dividing the province could lead to more equitable distribution and management of natural resources, potentially benefiting local communities. Reduced ethnic conflict. Some argue that creating provinces along ethnic lines could address grievances and reduce conflict by giving groups more autonomy. Now, talking about the cons, increased ethnic tensions, if not carefully managed. The creation of new provinces could exacerbate ethnic divisions and lead to further conflict or demands for secession. I wouldn't want to mention the name of the person. Last week I was going through, the YouTube, and suddenly I see this, that there is this one person who's talking about Baluchistan and goes into saying that Makranis are actually Habshis. They're not Balochs. Okay, and then he goes on to saying that Brahvis are not Balochs. Now these kinds of, discussions at such a sensitive time, because I am from Makran, and I know whether Makranis, yes, we do have those people who were brought, from the Portuguese brought, sold in Gwadar, were bought by people, normally we would call them slaves, but not anymore. We do have them through generations in Baluchistan, in Makran specifically. They are part and parcel of our families. I remember my father talking, saying that when it was declared, the British law that slaves are now free, a lot of us were against that law and we migrated to Irani Balochistan, saying that how can, the British direct or order us. But simultaneously, the families of these families who were with us through generations also came across border and said, we don't want to leave our mirs or mutbars or, the whole setup because we're part and parcel. We stayed for a year and then decided that, we came back to Pakistan, and Mand is where I come from. So you see, that's the kind, we in Makran specifically do not have the feudal setup. We don't have the Sardari setup. We are one and equal. We do have caste, so-and-so family, tribe, caste, whatever, lekin as human beings, we are all equal. So recently hearing this was really a shock for me and for other Balochs who are, if you look at the youth, and if you see, if a youth hears that in Balochistan, that is going to aggravate the whole issue. Brahwi is a language, but they are Balochs. They come from, Governor Saab and Shoaib Sadal Saab and all of us would know that very well, that if you look at Mehergarh, historically, 10 to 11,000 years old, according to archaeology, that is where they all come from. So it is a Dravidian language, but they are Baloch in all sense. I'm married to a Brahwi speaking man. My son speaks both the languages, Brahwi and Balochi, because mother tongue Balochi, father speaks Brahwi. Then we come to the issue of financial burden. Establishing new provincial administrations naturally would require significant financial resources, potentially straining the overall budget that we have. And there's no revenue generation in Balochistan till today. 21st sort of century we are in, 78 years of with the biggest potential for revenue generation. We still don't have a revenue generation. We depend on the Federation and the NFC award for our overall budget. Now, and within that, when you look at the sort of distances involved, if you look at the map, I was just having a look at it, if we are dividing it into two, look at Chari, least populated, biggest district, Rekodik, Sandak, Mayo Mineral Corridor, and then you have to go all the way to Quetta. At this moment, it takes 7 to 8 hours to reach Quetta. That's the kind of distances and spaces we are talking about. No infrastructure. So the whole issue of revenue, though we have gas, Sui gas, 1953, it's going all over the country, but Sui itself doesn't have gas till today. Leave alone the other villages. A few, as Awais Saab will also bear me out, that in our tenure, Musharraf's time, Kalat got gas, Mastung got gas, Ziyarat got gas. These were the 4, 5, 6 districts that, otherwise it was only Quetta, because of the cantonment, with all my brothers from the army sitting here. Yeah. Yeah, in mid-80s, yeah, Zia-ul-Haq's time, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the rest of us were all living on coal, that is how it was. Till Musharraf's tenure, Danial is there. So, that was and still most of Makran, till today, we do get cylinders from Iran, because Karachi is too far from us. But otherwise, for bigger houses, larger families, we still use, our fuel is wood. So on one hand, we talk of climate change and cutting of woods, saving forests, and on the other hand, you don't have the alternate for your fuel, even in homes. So you see, it's a completely different province compared to others. Then also, the administrative challenges, naturally dividing a province can create complex administrative challenges, as Daniel related to the distribution of assets, infrastructure, and personnel. I remember that when Daniel was heading the NRB, the whole discussion on local, sort of, and the district governments was that not only do we transfer the powers of, just giving them the authority, but actually giving the power and financial authority to districts, which never happened. Naturally, things do start with good intentions, but then, as my colleague mentioned, that we have to follow up. The systems were never put into place. When you look at the 18th Amendment today, it's the same story. Powers, employees were sent to the provinces, but there was no authority, financial authority, or further devolving from provinces to districts. That never happened. So you see, the whole issue of leaving it half-cooked is basically what we are where we are today. Then weakening of provincial unity. Again, as I mentioned a little bit, critics argue that dividing Baluchistan could weaken the province's overall political and economic power. I would also say that any decision to create new provinces should be based on broad consensus among the people of Balochistan, including all ethnic and political groups. If you look at Quetta today, you have the Hazara, you have the settlers, you have the Pashtun, you have the Baloch, the Brahvi, and you have Sindhi speaking when you talk about, Nasirabad division and the others. So there's exactly, settlers from KP, then a huge influx of Afghans, many who have got, the ID cards, even recently when the last government, when there was a sifting, only in Dukki there were 60,000 fake ID cards which came out, 60,000 given to Afghan people. So that, now how do you divide Quetta itself? And which portion of Quetta would you be giving to which province within Balochistan? So these are really complex issues, and I feel not only ethnic and political groups, but even youth at large. I feel very strongly about that, especially when we are where we are. It would be good if you look at Balochistan through the eyes of the youth of Balochistan. It's very important today, in today's scenario, that we have these discussions, not giving speeches, but actual discussions with them. That how do they feel as a Baloch living in Balochistan today, with Pakistan, with the Federation. So that's an important study which needs to be happened and research done. Naturally, the national impact, also the feasibility, a requirement for the feasibility, a thorough assessment of the economic, administrative, and political feasibility of creating new provinces is essential, not only for Balochistan, but all other provinces also. The national impact, naturally the potential impact of dividing Balochistan on the rest of Pakistan should also be carefully considered. I would then come on the overall, my final two comments. The creation of new provinces in Balochistan is, as I said, a sensitive issue with the potential for both positive and negative consequences. And it's crucial to approach this matter with careful consideration. Broad consultation and focus on promoting peace and stability in the country. If ever, it is decided and this goes ahead, my suggestion would be that we start with Punjab and KPK first as models. You know, you have them done completely with all the issues that we are talking, and then we go towards Balochistan. So that to build the trust and confidence of the Baloch people, okay, what you're doing is, you know, is something for them so that the ownership comes from the Baloch themselves. I would also finally, I think I've said all my points, so just have a look at the map once again. You know, it's huge. And with no financial resources, I remember in my first cabinet when I spoke about a road from Turbat to Mand, and this was the time of, you know, Musharraf's time. And I said we need that road because it's, you know, it's linking you to the Iranian border and my hometown naturally. And there was an argument that, you know, the economics versus the infrastructure and the population and whatnot. Finally, I said, look, for once, let us look at it through a humanistic angle and not what we will get in return. That road was built, alhamdulillah. Today, there's further funding for it to link it to the M8 road. But you see, over 25 years, if that's the speed of work for Balochistan, then, you know, the grievances and things will compound and keep on lingering. So it's important that we start with bigger provinces and then go to Balochistan. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
My RA also recommended that.
And your PhD resistant was start with Punjab first. So that's a very interesting insight. So we come to our next speaker who is not from Punjab, mercifully, Mr. Murtaza Solanki for your discourse. नहीं वो बाद में वो discussion में करेंगे. We are giving chance to the actual participants, original participants.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As a broadcasters, we are trained to mark the time. So 7 minutes means 7 minutes or less. Let me, first of all, appreciate, you know, the learned speakers who have added more to my knowledge than I had before coming here. Especially, I want to thank the interventions by Mr. Shakil Durrani, my good friend Danial Aziz, and Ambassador Hassan. Let me appreciate the very spirit behind this discussion. The spirit is that 250 million people who reside in 6 administrative areas, 4 federating units, these 250 million people speak dozens of languages. As Director General Radio Pakistan, I learned that Radio Pakistan broadcasts in 22 languages. I added one, Wahi, from Gilgit Baltistan. So you can imagine how big of a country we are and how diverse we are. The very spirit behind this discussion, I would guess, is to make Pakistan a good, prosperous, strong, independent, sovereign country that has less challenges, that faces both centrifugal and centripetal forces. We live in very challenging global arena with Trump 2.0 turning America into Trumperica. We have huge challenges. So, as they say in English, be careful what you wish for. You might get it. And what you get it might not be what you had wished for. So we have to be very careful. Now, I would just give you an example. 15 years back, our wise guys and gals in the parliament decided to make almost rewrote our constitution called 18th Amendment. And they abolished and devolved almost 15 ministries and divisions to the provinces. Lo and behold, after a little while, we saw almost the same ministries reappearing with new fancy names, adding more bureaucracy, adding more bloating the federal bureaucracy. And what we have seen in the provinces in the last 15 minutes, I won't point any one province, that all those devolved powers and wealth was concentrated in the capital with new political oligarchs ruling the country, what I call the rule of new political warlords in Pakistan after 18th Amendment, which is very sad, which was not the wish they had wished for and what we got. So I would just say by concluding that if, and I'll just give you a very brief example. In a small town just south of Milwaukee in Wisconsin, Burlington, with a population of only 15,000 people, as a student, I asked my next door neighbor, Mr. Craig Fox, who is the governor of Wisconsin? Who's the lieutenant governor? Who is the minister for so-and-so? Who's the interior secretary in Washington? He says, why do I care? I have my county elected government, elected sheriffs, judges, school boards, elected mayor, and the council. They provide all the services that I need. Why do I have to bother about who's sitting in Madison, Wisconsin, and what they are doing? Of course, I get affected. So the heart and soul of democracy is nothing but the empowered local government. Thankfully, we made an amendment called 140A, what was the gentleman referring to. Let me just read it. It's just a couple of lines. 140A amended says, each province shall by law establish a local government system and devolve political, administrative, and financial responsibility and authority to the elected representatives of the local governments. But then it says, the 2 says, elections to the local governments shall be held by the Election Commission of Pakistan. Sadly, the city that we are living in has no local government. You know what has happened in Punjab. In Sindh, they do have local governments, but if you look at the parts of the local government, they have empowered them in one sentence and they have taken away those powers in the next sentence. So until and unless you have powerful, administrative, empowered local governments, you will continue to have this discussion what we are having if we have 4 provinces or we should have 40 provinces. I would just end by something which is very close to my heart. I asked Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif when we were flying from Gilgit to Islamabad, I asked him, Prime Minister, the people that you met today, the boy from Ghizar, Kaplu, Skardu, Shigar, Honza, do you think if India does not hold plebiscite in 200 years, these boys have no power and authority to be in their position? And that's my question to all of us. So I understand that we will have plebiscite one day, but till that happens, the collective experience of working with Pakistan will determine their mood, where they should vote for. So we should amend our constitution and give them, by adding a proviso, give them full citizenship rights. They should not work as subjects. And the history you just told us, when the independent Gilgit state made a request to be part of Pakistan, Jinnah Sahab wrote a chithi to Liaquat Ali Khan, who marked it to George Cunningham, the governor of NWFP, and they imposed FCR and remained there till 1972. So we have to address these issues. We have to create an environment where supplementary identities like Sindhis and Brahvis and Baluchis, in a historical span, they become irrelevant and the Pakistani identity becomes much stronger. It will be in a historical process, not by any administrative action. Thank you.
Thank you, Rangi sir. Very enlightening discourse. And the point about GB, it's a very complicated issue, and IPRI has done a policy research brief on that, which encapsulates all these options: amending of Article 1 or Article 57, conditional, subject to proviso. And those who are interested can look up on our website for that. Now we come to our last formal discussant, Advocate Hafiz Ehsan, and I'm glad that he will put us wise on some legal aspects as well, knowing his background.
एम्बेसडर साहब, ब्रिगेडियर साहब, बहुत शुक्रिया। जितनी भी बात हुई है वो दो एरियाज़ के अंदर जाके हुई है। एक है लोकल एम्पावरमेंट और दूसरा है नीड फॉर न्यू एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव यूनिट्स, और दोनों की अपनी अपनी जो है वो इम्पोर्टेंस भी है, और दोनों जो है एक दूसरे को रेप्लिकेट नहीं करते। बुनियादी तौर पे जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव यूनिट्स है उसके कई फंडामेंटल्स हैं जिनकी बुनियाद के ऊपर आप किसी भी एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव यूनिट्स के ऊपर जा सकते हैं। द वन इज़ द पॉपुलेशन साइड एंड द गवर्नेंस नीड, सेकंड इज़ द एथनिक, लिंग्विस्टिक एंड कल्चरल आइडेंटिटी, द थर्ड इज़ द इकोनॉमिक वायबिलिटी, द फोर्थ इज़ द जियोग्राफिक एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कन्वीनियंसी, fifth is the historical and public demands, and finally the security and law enforcement areas. अब हम जिन provinces के ऊपर बात कर रहे हैं, just I am sharing the data कि where we were standing and now we are what today we have जी। पंजाब जो है इसको 1849 के अंदर 1849 के अंदर it was established and the population was 20 to 25 million approximately. And at that time, Hazara was the part, and the current Indian Punjab was also the part of the Punjab. The NWFP was separated from some part of the Punjab in 1901, and the population was approximately 2.5 million. The Sindh province was made in 1936, and the approximate population was 4.5, and in Baluchistan it was made province in 1970 with the status of the province, and approximately the population was 2.5 million. Now at that time the whole population was 27 million for the whole of Pakistan, and 30 million population at that time from the east Pakistan at that time, so totally 57 million. Now come to the next point, which is also a very interesting point in this particular area, is that we made the province in Punjab 1849, and we are talking about much examples about the Indians. The Indians made an act, the Reorganization of the States Act 1956, and simultaneously in 1955 we made a one unit. They were going on the administrative convenience on all what I am telling on the different areas, but we adopted the 1955 to 1970 a one unit policy. And there were definitely certain objections that, and there was certain backlashes of that. But instead of going on the transition sides, the administrative unit is an ongoing process. It never ends up on that we have divided in 47 or 50 or 60s or 70s. It is an ongoing need of any country for the administrative purposes. The second important point would be that the Indian Punjab is the less than the Punjab. And they have divided in the Punjab into 3 areas. One is the Punjab, the second is the Haryana, and the third is the Himachal Pradesh. The Punjab regional was 1947, the Haryana was made in 1966, and Himachal Pradesh was 1971. And now recently they have also introduced the states in 2014 in the Indian Sea. So my submission would be that administrative unit is a demand of time, not for the purposes of the political slogans. And we talk about the people's empowerment. And we write and we read the Article 140A of the Constitution. But the credit goes to General Musharraf. There was no such Article 140A in the Constitution, and there was a genuine devolution of power to the provinces. There was a system of local government at the district level, at the sea level, at union councils levels, and all the words written down in the constitutions, they were available in the local government systems. There was a system of police accountability over there by making certain public police and complaints commission, by making a police order 2002. But unfortunately, there was a cap in 2009 constitution, and as it was removed, there is no local government system in Pakistan. And still, we are talking about that there should be Article 140A implementation for the whole of the country. So there is a dichotomy in our political leaders, the dichotomy in our parliamentarians, the dichotomy in our policymakers. So first, we should realize either we do have or we do have a need of it, and if we do have a need of it, then there should be a proper homework for it. And the proper homework would be that we should establish a commission like the Indians have made on it. It should not be a discourse. Generally, for the public awareness, it is important to have such type of discourses. But now we have spent 76 years. Now they are vested interest in the provinces, in the administrative, in the bureaucracy, in the politicians. And they will not be easily digging out from that areas if they are not acceptable and they are not accepting the devolution of power. And we have made the 18th Amendment, and even we have abolished the concurrence list in the Constitution. Do the provinces have given the power to the district governments? Do they have allocated the Provincial Finance Commission into the district finance commissions? They don't. And I had the experience of working in the local government system in the police order 2002. There is a need to change the mindset. And the mindset lied with the chief ministers and the prime ministers. Whosoever is in the power, he needs to have more power, try to grab the power, and to control the system under one personality. And if they are in opposition, they talk about democracy, they talk about the equality, they talk about the fair distribution. But as soon they enter into this helm of affairs, they don't bother what is going on. So Pakistan is a population of 250 million. We need to work on both sides. We need to work on the local empowerment, Article 140A of the Constitution. And there should be built a pressure on these political parties and the political governments or the governments of the day that there is no option for Pakistan except to have a strong local government system in Pakistan. And simultaneously, there is no option to have a better administrative units in Pakistan to make a Pakistan more prosperous, viable, and administratively handled in the region and among the communities of the world. And finally, I would say on it that the best recommendation would be, like we have a National Reconstruction Bureau, and they made certain very good legislation and on many areas like pay and pension, like the police system, like the local government system. So we should recommend the government that they should establish some part of a commission for the administrative or the implementation of reforms. And especially for the Article 140A, it is the important. If through an amendment in the Constitution we have the 140A, so what is the spirit of 140A? 148 doesn't mean that it should only be in the Constitution and there should be no implementation of this article. And just we are speaking and murmuring on this topic that the article of the Constitution. Who is the responsible? The Parliament is the responsible. The government is the responsible. Article 5 of the Constitution is there, that it is your duty, whosoever in every type of affairs, he is the responsible under Article 5 of the Constitution to implement every line and letter of the Constitution of Pakistan. So I think it is a good step on discussing these areas, but until unless we will not make and having such a permanent commission or secretariat to address these issues, these will be on merely in a discourse and ultimately will not make a pressure on those people who are in the helm of affairs, but simultaneously it would be on the public affairs side. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now we open the floor for any points or discussions by anyone. We'll request that remarks to be kept as concise as possible in the interest of time. And anybody, Gauri sir?
मैं सिर्फ एक ऑब्जर्वर के हिसाब से जो मैंने देखा है पिछले 35 साल में उस पे सिर्फ चंद सेंटेंसेस एंड थैंक यू वेरी मच दानियाल शकील साहब अवैस साहब बिकॉज यू नो स्विमिंग अगेंस्ट द टाइड इज नेसेसरी मेरा भी ख्याल ये है कि देखें पहले तो ये एडमिट करना चाहिए कि हम 4 सूबे नहीं चला सके 75 साल में और फिर ये देखें कि हमने 14 किस तरह बनाने हैं 17 किस लिए बनाने हैं क्विकली मुझे याद है कि 1992 में आई वाज वर्किंग इन लाहौर सेम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन द न्यूज़ तो पंजाब के जो हेल्थ मिनिस्टर थे उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि मुझे एक इंटरव्यू आया हुआ है बड़ी ज़ोर से तो मैंने कहा कर लेते हैं तो उन्होंने कहा मैंने कहा क्या इंटरव्यू है उन्होंने कहा इस मुल्क के कोई 17 सूबे होने चाहिए मैंने कहा आप तो हेल्थ मिनिस्टर हैं तो और ताल्लुक़ आपका भावलपुर से देखिए जी हम रियासत थे हमें हमारे साथ जाती हुई है सराइकी सूबा होना चाहिए मैं कहा चलें ये 1 हो गया 5 हो गए 17 कैसे बनेंगे तो उन्होंने एक लंबा इंटरव्यू दिया और यही रीज़न थी जो आज हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं और उसके बाद ये हुआ कि उनकी मिनिस्ट्री चली गई नवाज शरीफ साहब ने कहा भाईजान आप अपनी मिनिस्ट्री पे फोकस करें और ये सूबे छोड़ दें ये जो सारी मैंने डिबेट सुनी है उसमें देखें 2 चीज़ें हैं कि एम्पावर करना है लोगों को या डिलीवरी ऑफ सर्विस है ठीक है ना और जो चीज़ें शकील साहब ने कहा है कि ये जो बेसिक चीज़ें हैं मुझे याद है थोड़े दिन पहले मैंने अपने रिपोर्टर से कहा कि पता करो रावलपिंडी का लास्ट गजेटियर कब लिखा गया था ठीक है ना क्योंकि मुझे ये पता कि पहला जो है वो 1890s में लिखा गया था तो उसके बाद मुझे याद है कि अंग्रेज़ जो है वो हर थोड़े अरसे के बाद गजेटियर लिखवाते थे ताकि पता लगे कि जो लैंड सेटलमेंट है उसके अंदर जो प्रॉपर्टी है वो नए लोगों को चली गई होगी लोग मर गए होंगे बच्चों को चली गई होंगी प्रॉपर्टीज़ तो फॉर ऑल पर्पसेस पता लगे कि ओनरशिप क्या है प्रॉपर्टी की लैंड की वो वापस आया उसने कहा कि सर कोई रिकॉर्ड नहीं मिलता कि रावलपिंडी का गजेटियर कब लिखा गया है किसी ज़माने में डिप्टी कमिश्नर लिखते थे मैं सिर्फ ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि बिकॉज माई फादर वॉज ऑल्सो अ सिविल सर्वेंट जैसे पाकिस्तान बना था तो अगर पंजाब मुझे लगता है पंजाब प्रॉब्लम है इस वक्त किसी के लिए और ये मैं आखिरी 2-3 जो है ना सेंटेंसेस उस वक्त 4 डिविजन्स थे पंजाब के अब जिस तरह दानियाल ने भी कहा बाकी सारों को पता है कि 10 हैं उस वक्त फ़र्ज़ किया अगर 12 डिस्ट्रिक्ट थे एवरी डिवीजन यूजुअली हैव अराउंड अबाउट 3 एंड देन एवरी डिस्ट्रिक्ट यूजुअली 3 और 4 तहसील्स तो आप समझ लें कि 12 डिस्ट्रिक्ट हो जाएंगे या 13 डिस्ट्रिक्ट हो जाएंगे और इसी तरह 26-27 तहसीलें हो जाएंगी अब इस वक्त जो हैं तहसीलें जो हैं वो अगर फ़र्ज़ किया लेट से ज़िले जो हैं 41 हो गए हैं और बाज़ ज़िलों की 6-6 तहसीलें हैं तो रियासत तो पहुंची है अगर डिलीवरी ऑफ सर्विस है तो अब हर तहसील में एक असिस्टेंट कमिश्नर बैठा हुआ है अदालतें भी हैं थाने भी हैं लेकिन जो लोग बैठे हुए हैं वो अपना काम नहीं कर रहे ये आप कैसे इंश्योर करेंगे सूबे तो जो हैं या चीफ मिनिस्टर जो हैं वो तो डिलीवरी ऑफ सर्विस नहीं करते ना पार्लियामेंट जो है नेशनल वो तो ये नहीं डिसाइड करती कि डिलीवरी ऑफ सर्विस क्या है वो तो लेजिस्लेशन करती है तो अगर फ़र्ज़ किया आपने हर एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव डिवीजन को बनाना है तो वो आप बना दें लेकिन जो आखिरी कमेंट है मुझे इस तरह लगता है कि पंजाब हैज़ बिकम अ चैलेंज बिटवीन द पावरफुल एंड द पावरलेस इस वजह से, एंड दिस इज़ माई रीडिंग नॉट एज एडिटर बट एज ए पाकिस्तानी, कि दो पॉलिटिशियंस जो है ना वो शरारती हो गए, वो उठाए गए थे, बनाए गए थे, वो लड़ने लग गए। अब वो जो 141 सीटें हैं ना पंजाब की, उनको शायद डिवाइड करना है। तो जिस तरह ये बात करते हैं ना कि सराइकी सूबा बनना चाहिए, तो मैंने कहा सराइकी कहाँ से बनेगा? डेरा गाजी खान तो नहीं बैठना चाहता मुल्तान के साथ, और मुल्तान तो नहीं बैठना चाहता बहावलपुर के साथ। और अगर ये कहें कि बड़ी एहसास महरूमी पाया जा रहा है, तो डेरा गाजी खान विच इज़ वन ऑफ द फार फ्लंग, और जिसे हम कहते थे कि दी सदर्न मोस्ट, तो वहाँ से तो प्रेसिडेंट आए हैं, वहाँ से प्राइम मिनिस्टर आए हैं, वहाँ से चीफ मिनिस्टर आए हैं, वहाँ से गवर्नर आए हैं, वहाँ से चीफ सेक्रेटरीज आए हैं, वहाँ से आईजीज आए हैं। तो तकलीफ तो मेरे से बंदे को होना चाहिए जो लाहौर का है कि भाईजान आप तो महरूमी नहीं, महरूमी तो यहाँ है। तो मुझे इस तरह लगता है कि कहीं पे इस्तेमाल होते हैं वो लोग जो जब तक पावर में होते हैं तो उस वक्त उनको सराइकी सूबा याद नहीं आता, और कल को अगर फर्ज किया आप सराइकी सूबा बना लें तो कल को नॉर्दर्न पंजाब को कौन रोकेगा कि जी नॉर्थ ऑफ जेलम जो है ये एक और सूबा होना चाहिए, ठीक है, कि सीटें जो है 141 इनको डिवाइड किया जाए ताकि वो लोग जो नवाज शरीफ की सूरत में या इमरान खान की सूरत में आर नाउ नॉट बेसिकली वर्किंग अकॉर्डिंग टू दी डिज़ायर ऑफ देयर सेलेक्टर्स, तो अब नए सेलेक्टर्स जो हैं वो फिर उसी तरह से अयूब खान ने बहुत सारे बनाए थे बेसिक डेमोक्रेट्स, और ये बेसिक डेमोक्रेट्स की जो औलादें हैं वही पाकिस्तान पे हुकूमत कर रही हैं। आई थिंक इंटेंशन कि पाकिस्तान के लोगों को क्या देना है, तो वो जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट हैं, वो जिस तरह शकील दुरानी साहब ने कहा कि जो पटवार है और जो थाना है और जो कचहरी है, अगर इफ़ दे स्टार्ट वर्किंग अकॉर्डिंग टू दी रिटन एंड नॉट अकॉर्डिंग टू द वर्बल जो कहीं से आती हैं, आई थिंक देन प्रॉब्लम्स कैन बी सॉल्व्ड। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू। दानियाल साहब, एक सिंस लोकल गवर्नमेंट का इशू आया है, is this hunger for new provinces a consequence of our lack of empowerment of local government system or resistance by the provinces to devolve the power? आपका, क्योंकि you have a lot to do with the local government's initial process also.
जी बिल्कुल, thank you very much. I think definitely it does. It's been left in a vacuum, and I would blame the political side, of course, for trying to usurp these powers, especially after, as has been mentioned, that the 18th Amendment shifted in favor of the provinces firmly and completely all those complaints that originated from the days of the Constitution. But that once they adopted those functions from the federal government and they got the money to run those under the 7th NFC award, that was the justification for increasing the percentage of the provinces to that level. But that didn't satiate their hunger. Then they clawed back all the local government functions. So the idea was that the federal to provincial devolution would be able to create a situation where they would focus on those functions which previously were with the federal government and allow the district governments to focus on their functions. But that didn't happen. So what you have as a result is a wobbly, top-heavy provinces which have clawed back the local government functions and also not fully implemented the federal government functions which came to them. And they have a lot of money sloshing around, so you have all kinds of ye patton ki siyasat ke ji ye health card or himmat card or pata nahi kaun sa card or ye mukhtalif alanat hote hain, hawaon mein trainen chal jati hain, paise jo aa gaye और ये किस किस्म की सूरत हाल सामने आ गई. सो इसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या है? कसूर जो है वो हमारा है, क्योंकि ये डेवोल्यूशन जो है ये 3 फेजेस में था. पहला फेज़ था प्रोविंशियल टू लोकल गवर्नमेंट, दूसरा फेज़ था फेडरल टू प्रोविंशियल, वो आके पीपल्स पार्टी ने कर दिया. पहला वाला जो है वो मुशर्रफ के दौर में हो गया. जो तीसरा वाला था, जो किसी को पता नहीं है या बात नहीं करते, वो था रीस्ट्रक्चरिंग द प्रोविंस टू अडॉप्ट द फेडरल फंक्शंस एंड शेड द लोकल गवर्नमेंट फंक्शंस. अब उसमें क्या है, अगर आप देखें एजुकेशन डिपार्टमेंट, हेल्थ डिपार्टमेंट, जितना भी डिपार्टमेंट, एक ऊपर उसकी पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क है जिसमें मिनिस्टर और सेक्रेटरी और उसके डिप्टी सेक्रेटरी वगैरह होते हैं. उसके नीचे एक बला होती है, उसको कहते हैं डायरेक्टरेट. वो जो डायरेक्टरेट है असल में वो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव जो है ना अहकामात जारी करती है और चलाती है पूरे सूबे को. तो जब वो पावर्स डिवॉल्व हो गई तो ये डायरेक्टरेट्स मतलब आर ह्यूज. अगर आप पंजाब की एजुकेशन डायरेक्टरेट देखें, अगर हेल्थ डायरेक्टरेट देखें वगैरह, جب وہ پاورز ڈیوالو ہوگی تو پھر ان صاحبان کا کیا کام تھا جو وہاں بیٹھ کے سارا دن اسپورٹس کے ٹیچر کی پوسٹنگیں ٹرانسفر کر رہے ہیں بہاولپور سے لے کے اٹک تک لاہور میں بیٹھ کے, اور وہ جو آخری فیز تھا وہ ہوا نہیں. تو وہ جو تپش تھی پروونشل لیول پہ کہ وہ جو اس کو فینٹم لم سنڈروم کہتے ہیں میڈیکل میں ایک اور میڈیکل ٹرمنالوجی, کہ جب بازو کٹ جاتا ہے آپ کو محسوس ہوتا ہے کہ نہیں وہ ہے, تو وہ جب ڈیولوشن ڈسٹرکٹس تک ہو گیا تو وہ فینٹم لم سنڈروم جو ہے وہ چونکہ باقی دھڑ وہاں پر موجود تھا, وہ چاہتا تھا کہ یہ بازو واپس آئے میں کروں. لیکن جو انٹرنل ڈائنامکس ہے پالیٹکس آف دی ایڈمنسٹریشن کی, آئی وانٹ ٹو شیئر دیٹ وتھ یو ایون اف اٹس گونا ٹیک می اے منٹ. دیکھیں جو سب سے بڑی چیز ہم نے سیکھی وہ ہمیں اگر پہلے دن پتہ ہوتی تو یہ سارا مسئلہ ہی نہ کھڑا ہوتا, کیونکہ اصل جو ہمیں سیکھنے میں آیا جو ڈیولوشن کی اسٹینگ پاور تھی وہ ایڈمنسٹریشن کی پالیٹکس تھی. اگر آپ کو یاد ہو تو جو سٹی ڈسٹرکٹ گورنمنٹس تھیں جو کہ ڈویژنل ہیڈ کوارٹر پہ بنی ہوئی تھیں, ان میں 21 گریڈ کا ڈی سی او تھا, اور جو پروونس ہے اکارڈنگ ٹو دی ایسٹا کوڈ اس میں جو سیکرٹریز ہیں وہ 20 گریڈ کے ہیں یا 21 گریڈ کے ہیں, ہاتھ چیف سیکرٹری ایس ایم بی آر اور آئی جی. سم ٹائمز پرسنل ٹو دی آفیسر ملا ہے 22 گریڈ بٹ ویری ریئرلی اینڈ اٹس انہرڈ آف, وہ بھی شارٹ پیریڈ کے لیے پرسنل ٹو دی آفیسر. تو اس وجہ سے جو چیف سیکرٹری تھا وہ جو 21 گریڈ کے ڈی سی او تھے وہ اس کے ہم منصب تھے ہائرارکی کے لحاظ سے. تو جب پی ایم ایل این کی گورنمنٹ آئی تو انہوں نے بڑا واہ بیلا مچایا کہ جی کرپشن ہوگی, آڈٹ کریں ساروں کا اور یہ کر دیں وہ کر دیں, اور یہ تباہی مچا دی آپ نے. اور چیف منسٹر صاحب شہباز شریف نے کہا کہ جی مجھے یونینمس آپ پرپوزل دے دیں تو میں لوکل گورنمنٹ ایکٹ امینڈ کر دیتا ہوں. تو پروونشل گورنمنٹ میٹنگ بلا لیتی تھی, تو اس میں وہ 21 گریڈ کے 5-6 جو اپنا ڈی سی اوز تھے وہ بھی آ جاتے تھے, سامنے 20 گریڈ کے سیکرٹریز بیٹھے ہوئے تھے لوکل گورنمنٹ, فائنانس, ایس این جی اے ڈی, بلا بلا بلا, اور چیف سیکرٹری صاحب تو وہ کہتے ہیں جی اس کو امینڈ کرنا ہے. وہ پھر آگے سے یہ آنکھیں نکالتے تھے ان کو کیونکہ ان کے سینئر تھے, تو وہ ایسے ہو جاتے تھے تو نہیں ہو سکا. فائنلی کیا ہوا, ایک میٹنگ ہوئی, 1 مہینہ چھوڑ کے دوسری میٹنگ ہوئی, 2 مہینے چھوڑ کے تیسری میٹنگ ہوئی, سال گزر گیا. تو فائنلی انہوں نے پھر کیا کیا کہ جس دن اپوزیشن پنجاب اسمبلی کی واک آؤٹ تھی اس دن انہوں نے رول سسپینڈ کر کے تو ایک امینڈمنٹ لے آئے کہ جو ڈی سی او ہوگا وہ گریڈ 18 کا ہوگا. تو اس کے بعد وہ 21 گریڈ کے آفیسر پوسٹ آؤٹ کر دیے, اور 1 ہفتے بعد یونینمس پرپوزل سامنے آ گیا اور لوکل گورنمنٹ ایکٹ امینڈ ہو گیا. تو اگر آپ ڈیولوشن واقعی چاہتے ہیں تو یہ جو ہم نے لمبا چوڑا یہ وہ کر کے ڈویژنل ٹیئر کا آگے پیچھے, آپ سمپلی جو 21 گریڈ کے آفیسرز ہیں جرنلسٹ کیڈر کے, کوئی سا بھی ہو, سیکریٹریٹ گروپ ہو جائے, یہ جس کو اے پی یو جی کہتے ہیں دوسرے لفظوں میں, اس میں پولیس بھی شامل ہے, ان کو آپ پوسٹ کر دیں ایز ہیڈ آف ڈسٹرکٹ, یا ایون اف یو وانٹ جیسے غنی صاحب کہہ رہے ہیں ہیڈ آف تحصیل کر دیں, اس میں پوسٹیں بھی بڑھ جائیں گی ان کی. وہ جو درانی صاحب کہہ رہے ہیں وہ ان کا جو انٹرسٹ ہے پروموشن کا اور وہ سارا وہ بھی ہو جائے گا, اور ساری کی ساری پاور جو ہے آپ نیچے اس کو بیس بنا دیں گے. ابھی ہم جاتے ہیں جس ملک میں ہم کہتے ہیں جی ملیشیا کا ماڈل, کبھی ہم کینیڈا جاتے ہیں وہاں کا ماڈل, کبھی ابھی ریسنٹلی چین گئے ہوئے تھے پرائم منسٹر کے, جی چائنیز ماڈل, اب چائنیز ماڈل آ گیا جی. اب چائنیز ماڈل کے بارے میں اور امریکن ماڈل کے بارے میں ایک انٹرسٹنگ فیکٹ میں آپ کو بتانا چاہتا ہوں کہ 55% آف آل دی ایکسپینڈیچر آف چائنا گورنمنٹ از کنڈکٹیڈ بائی دی لوئسٹ ٹیئر, وہاں ولیج کاؤنسل ہے. امیجن اف دیٹ واز دا کیس ان پاکستان کہ یہ جو یونین کاؤنسل ہے یا فار دیٹ میٹر ولیج کاؤنسل ہے, اگر 55% ہمارا ایکسپینڈیچر اس لیول پہ ہو رہا ہوتا تو یہ کیسا ملک ہوتا. جسٹ سم فوڈ فار تھاٹ. تو جو پروونشل فائنانس کمیشن ہے اس نے ایکچولی جو فنڈس کی ڈسٹریبیوشن ہے اس میں جو بیکورڈ ایریاز ہیں ان کو ترجیح دی. اس لیے میں آپ کو کہہ رہا ہوں کہ جو 80% کمپلینٹ آتی ہے نا جی یہ بیکورڈنس کی اور احساس محرومی, احساس کمتری اینڈ آل دس اسٹف, لاٹ آف اٹ ہیز ٹو ڈو وتھ دی ایلوکیشن آف فائنینشیل ریسورسز الٹیمیٹلی. If you keep tracing it back, it comes to that. So if you look at the provincial finance commissions of the first iteration of provincial finance commissions, I had a lot to do with that. Usi ka mujhe tamga mila tha. But what that did is it firmly and completely shifted the frame on an equality basis and to strengthen backwardness, I mean to get rid of backwardness. So usme ye hai ke over the years then what they did is they clawed that all back. And you got this top heavy wobbly provinces جو میں نے پہلے ایکسپلین کر دیا. سو اس میں جو وہ فیز تھا وہ اب پتہ نہیں کون سی گورنمنٹ کرے گی, تھرڈ فیز آف ڈیولوشن وچ از ٹو shed the local government functions and adopt the federal government functions. And that involves a lot of administrative changes. یہ جو میں نے ڈائریکٹریٹس کی آپ سے بات کی ہے, تو پھر جو فنکشن ہوگا پروونشل گورنمنٹ کا, پروونشل اسمبلی کا, وہ کیا رہ جائیں گے؟ وہ سب سے امپورٹنٹ فنکشنز ہیں, لیکن وہ ہمیں پسند نہیں آتے کیونکہ اس میں دوسرا کام نہیں ہے, if you understand my vernacular. But the problem is کہ پروونشل گورنمنٹ کو پھر کیسے ریسٹرکچر ہونا چاہیے. اس پہ اگر آپ واقعی چاہتے ہیں کہ ایڈمنسٹریشن بہتر ہو, تو جو انسینٹیوز ہے اور جو یہ ایڈمنسٹریٹو ریسٹرکچرنگ ہے, اس پہ آپ سیمینار کریں. وہ ایک بالکل علیحدہ سبجیکٹ ہے, لیکن میں نے آپ کو کچھ پوائنٹس آف لائٹ بتا دی ہیں کہ ڈیولیوشن ایکچولی رکا ہوا کیوں تھا. 21 گریڈ کے افسروں کی وجہ سے رکا تھا. وہ تو نقوی صاحب اور مشرف صاحب تو کب کے چلے گئے ہوئے تھے.
مجھے دیں گے جی سر پلیز کوئک.
I think, first of all, thanks, IPRI. Many issues have been discussed. میں out of my own experience ایسے 2-3 منٹ لوں گا. ایک تو یہ ہے کہ اگر ہم نے یہ پروونسز کی جو ڈسکشن ہے نا, ان کو نمبر بڑھانے کی, اس کو ان ہولڈ کر لیں فار دا ٹائم بینگ, اور پہلے گو تھرو کریں کہ یہ جو لوکل گورنمنٹ سسٹم تھا جن مشرف والا, وہ فیل کیوں ہوا. اس میں کچھ یہ ریزن ابھی دانیال عزیز انہوں نے بتائی بھی ہے, بٹ دیر آر ادر ریزنز ایز ویل. تو جب تک آپ افیکٹو اور ویل امپاورڈ لوکل گورنمنٹ اس ملک کو نہیں دیں گے, اب امیجننگ کہ سٹیز لائک کراچی اور لائک لاہور کین بی لیفٹ ٹو دی بیوروکریٹس, تو پھر یہی اشر ہونا ہے جو اب ہے. تو آپ یہ دیکھیں کہ ہم نے آرٹیکل 140A ایڈ کر لیا, کیا اس سے کوئی فرق پڑا ہے؟ کیونکہ ہماری نیت ویسی کی ویسے ہی ہے. اب فورموسٹ کام جو کرنے والا تھا 140A ایڈ کرتے وقت, وہ یہ تھا کہ شیڈیولز جو ہیں وہ بھی ایڈ کیے جاتے کہ کس کی کیا رسپانسبلٹی ہوگی. جیسے باقی شیڈول ہیں کہ جی پروونشل گورنمنٹ کا یہ ہے جورسڈکشن اور اوور دی لیجسلیشن, اور فیڈرل گورنمنٹ کی یہ ہے, اس میں چھوڑ دیا گیا. تو جو کام بھی چھوڑ دیا جاتا ہے وہ کبھی ہوتا ہی نہیں ہے. انڈیا میں لوکل گورنمنٹ کی سکسیس کی صرف اور صرف ایک وجہ یہ بھی ہے, اور امپورٹنٹ وجہ ہے, کہ دے ہیو سیپریٹ اسکیجولس, کہ میئر نے کرنا کیا ہے, ادھر کچھ بھی نہیں ہے. سو واٹ آئی ایم ٹرائنگ ٹو سے از کہ ہمیں اس ڈسکشن کو آئی ڈونٹ سے کہ وی آلریڈی ہیو انف نمبر آف پروونسز, مے بی لیونگ اسائڈ یہ جو دو ڈفرینٹ ایگزامپلز ہیں جی بی کی اور اے جے کی, وہ ان کا اسٹیٹس ہی ڈفرینٹ ہے. ہاں, وہ ایڈ کرنے ہیں بائی آل مینز, جب بھی کرنا ہے اس کا لنک اور ایشوز کے ساتھ بھی ہے. But otherwise, we must start with the local government. اس کے بغیر کوئی فائدہ نہیں ہے آپ 40 پروونسز بنا لیں, ہم اس سے بدتر ہوں گے جہاں آج موجود ہیں. تھینک یو.
Thank you very much, sir. A very fascinating discourse, and I think we have come to the end of this very. Quickly.
کر رہا ہوں, میری 2 بجے کچھ گیسٹ I have to receive. Over to you. So I need to rush. میرا خیال ہے کہ what we heard اس پہ اکثر و بیشتر بات ہوتی رہتی ہے. There is no good or bad policy. One can argue کہ ہر اچھی سے اچھی پالیسی میں کچھ لوزرز ہوتے ہیں اور ہر بری پالیسی میں کچھ بینیفیشریز ہوتے ہیں. That's why that policy is there. Academic discussion اور یہ جو ورک ہے, تھینک یو, آپ نے ایٹ لیسٹ ایک کام شروع کر دیا. ایس ٹی پی آئی کی طرف سے میں یہ آفر کرنا چاہ رہا ہوں کہ لیٹس ٹیک دس ڈسکشن ٹو پروونسز. تو ایپری, ایس ٹی پی آئی, پروونسز میں کچھ ہم تھنک ٹینکس اور کچھ جو ہیں لوگ جو کہ اس پہ بات کر سکے, اس کا پولیٹیکل اکانومی انالیسس کریں, پریگمیٹک دیکھیں. سو academically speaking, I have no problem with what is written in this book. लेकिन अगर इसको मुझे रोल आउट करना है तो सारी जो बातें यहाँ पे हुई उनको अंडरस्टैंड करना बहुत ज़रूरी होगा और हर प्रोविंस के, हर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के, हर ग्रुप के पर्सपेक्टिव से उसको अंडरस्टैंड करना होगा ताकि हम इस ऑलरेडी जो एक हाईली पोलराइज सोसाइटी है उसको मज़ीद पोलराइज ना कर दें। तो आप के साथ STPI would be more than happy to conduct any background research. हम आपको करके दे दें, हम प्रोविंसेस में इस डिबेट और डिस्कशन को लेके जाएं और थोड़ा सा एक इन्फॉर्म्ड इस पे ओपिनियन जो है वो कायम करें। और सडल साहब की जो है लोकल गवर्नमेंट के बारे में एम्फेसिस, आई थिंक ऑफ कोर्स नो सेन माइंड कैन डिसएग्री विद इट। सूबे ज़्यादा बनाएं या यही रखें, लोकल गवर्नमेंट जो है वो हमारे पास होनी चाहिए। थैंक यू।
जी मैं जस्ट 1-2 मिनट लूँगा। जिस तरह मैंने शुरू में कहा था कि आज जो लोग बैठे हैं इससे कोई कंक्रीट चीज़ आनी चाहिए। इट शुड नॉट बी जस्ट अनदर राउंड ऑफ डिस्कशन एंड उठ के हम चले जाएं, कि उससे कोई कंक्रीट चीज़ आए, क्योंकि इस मुल्क के जो मसाइल हैं इन लोगों ने ही हल करने हैं, बाहर से कोई नहीं आएगा। अभी पिछले हफ्ते मैं सुन रहा था जी कि ये न्यू प्रोविंसेस की प्रपोजल जो है ये जो आया हुआ है IMF का वफ्द, उसको भी की गई है जी कि आप जो है ना इसका कुछ करें गवर्नेंस का। लेकिन बेसिक कंसर्न अगेन इज़ द गवर्नेंस और वो हमने खुद करनी है। और उसमें एक चीज़ पे सर आज जो है जो मुझे लगता है कि एक चीज़ जो है ना विच हैज़ कम आउट ऑफ दिस डिस्कशन, इट इज़ द कंसेंसस ऑन इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ आर्टिकल 140A। आप बेशक कमीशन बना लें, गौर गौज करते रहें, पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी बना लें, वो करते रहें और एनालिसिस करें, रिसर्च करें, जो कि पिछले 78 साल से हो रही है। जब से मैं सर्विस में आया हूँ 40 साल से गुड गवर्नेंस का सुन रहा हूँ। भरी हुई अलमारियाँ रिफॉर्म्स हैं, रोज़ सुनते हैं कि डीप स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म्स करेगा कौन, उनको अपना काम करने दें। आज की डिस्कशन से मेरी IPRI से और दोज हू आर बिहाइंड दिस इनिशिएटिव्स, सर मेरी रिक्वेस्ट ये होगी एक चीज़, जस्ट वन मिनट, कि ये जो इसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन है इस पर कोई हिच नहीं है। दिस इज़ अ कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रिक्वायरमेंट और उसका एक हाल ये है, और दिस इज़ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ द प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट, उन्होंने करना है। तो उसका एक हाल ये है कि आई एम सजेस्टिंग आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स सोल्यूशन कि फेडरल गवर्नमेंट से जो डिविजिबल पूल से पैसे मांगते हैं, फेडरल गवर्नमेंट शुड रिलीज दीज फंड्स इन इंस्टॉलमेंट्स ऑन द कंडीशन कि एक इंस्टॉलमेंट चली जाए, लोकल गवर्नमेंट इलेक्शन हो जाएं और डिस्ट्रिक्ट गवर्नमेंट्स को करें तो फिर करें। ये बाकी जो है बातों से नहीं होगा, ना ये माइंडसेट चेंज होगी। तो आई थिंक एटलीस्ट दिस वन कंक्रीट जो है ना प्रपोजल विच हैज़ कम आउट ऑफ इट, एंड आई विल रिक्वेस्ट दैट इट इस पर कोई कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ नहीं होना चाहिए। थैंक यू।
ऑल वैल्यूएबल इनपुट्स वुड बी टेकन एंड ये लोकल गवर्नमेंट पे शकील दुरानी साहब, गवर्नर अवैस गनी, शुएब सडल साहब और सबसे बढ़ के द वन वाज फ्रंट एंड सेंटर दानियाल अजीज़। आई थिंक वी वर वेरी फॉर्चुनेट टू हैव ऑल दीज पीपल अराउंड जिन्होंने हमें दिया, और रेस्ट एश्योर्ड दैट ईच एंड एवरी रिकमेंडेशन वुड बी इनकॉर्पोरेटेड। तो विद दिस वी कम टू द एंड।
इससे पहले कि सारे गेस्ट उठ के चले जाएं, जिनके लिए हमने एक छोटा सा लंच भी अरेंज किया हुआ है, हम वाइंड अप करते हैं, बट अर्शद साहब 1 मिनट ओनली।
थैंक यू वेरी मच जी। सारे दानिश्वर प्रैक्टिशनर यहाँ मौजूद हैं। मैं छोटा सा एक इंसिडेंट बता देता हूँ, तो आई थिंक दैट विल रिफ्लेक्ट ऑन एवरीथिंग। दुनिया भर में 80% लोकल, कोई 15% प्रोविंशियल और 5% फेडरल गवर्नेंस होती है, जिसका सिटीजन से वास्ता होता है। आई वाज सिटिंग एन एस्टेब्लिशमेंट डिवीजन, एक बड़ी हाई लेवल की मीटिंग होने वाली थी, तो सारे हमारे जैसे 22-21 ग्रेड के बाबू बैठे, बड़ी थोड़ी प्री चैट चल रही थी मीटिंग से पहले। एक 19-20 ग्रेड का नौजवान अफसर बैठा हुआ था, कपल ऑफ ईयर्स एगो ये इंसिडेंट है, तो उसने कोई गैर मोहतात जुमला बोल दिया अबाउट दोज हु आर ऑन द हेल्म ऑफ द अफेयर्स। तो मैंने उसको आंखें दिखाई, मैंने खामोश, ये बातें यहाँ नहीं करने की होती हैं, इट विल बेर ए कॉन्सिक्वेंस फॉर यू। आप ऐसा करें, मैं दफ्तर आए, हैव ए कप ऑफ कॉफी विद मी। नेक्स्ट डे ही अराइव्स। मैंने कहा क्या मसला है, वाई यू आर सो फ्रस्ट्रेटेड, इस किस्म की बात वहाँ नहीं करने की होती, अभी नौजवान है, अब लॉन्ग वे टू गो। कहते सर लुक एट दिस गवर्नेंस स्ट्रक्चर, लेगेसी, एवरीथिंग। मैंने कहा मसला क्या है, बोलो। कहना सर आपने पढ़ी है हिस्ट्री, कॉलोनियल रिजीम सिर्फ 2 चीज़ों की बात करता था, लॉ एंड ऑर्डर मैनेजमेंट एंड मनी एक्सट्रैक्शन। आज हमने थोड़ा मोजिज लेबलिंग कर दी है उसकी। आज हम कहते हैं रेवेन्यू कलेक्शन को इंक्रीज करना
और लॉ एंड ऑर्डर मैनेजमेंट। उसने मुझे 6 वज़ीर आज़मों के बयानात दिखाए अपने मोबाइल पे, कहने लगा सर हमारे वज़ीर आज़म यही करते हैं जो पहले वो वाइसराय करते थे। तो आई सेड यस, व्हाट डू यू थिंक बीइंग अ यंग मैन, करना क्या चाहिए, या दूसरी जो जिंदा सिविलाइज्ड कौमें होती हैं क्या करती हैं? कहते ओनली 2 थिंग्स। मैंने कहा जी वो क्या? बोले एक वो जो आप कर रहे हैं, आई एम चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव फॉर दिस सेहत सहूलत प्रोग्राम, सर्विस डिलीवरी। वन इज सर्विस डिलीवरी एंड सेकंड इज नेशन बिल्डिंग। गवर्नमेंट का इसके अलावा कोई काम नहीं होता, बाकी सारा प्राइवेट सेक्टर काम करता है। मेरी भी गुजारिश यही है, जैसे इश्तियाक साहब ने फरमाया कि टेक अवे ये होना चाहिए कि हम छोटे छोटे से पेटी स्टेप्स लेके इस तरफ जाएं आगे। बाकी जो सूबे हैं इनको कल्चरल हेरिटेज बना के रखें। एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव यूनिट्स अगर आपको डिवीजन अच्छे लगते हैं वो अडॉप्ट कर लें, डिस्ट्रिक्ट अच्छे लगते हैं वो कर लें, अवैध साहब ने फरमाया तहसील करते हैं अच्छे लगते हैं वो ले लें, जो मर्जी अडॉप्ट कर लें। सारा झगड़ा है रिसोर्सेज, अथॉरिटी एंड कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग। इन तीनों को ACR कह लें आप। ACR अगर हम करने पर राजी हो जाएं, सिर्फ इलेक्शन तीनों के तीनों फेडरल, प्रोविंशियल, लोकल एक दिन करवा लें, और PFC को जैसे दानियाल कह रहे थे, PFC को NFC से जोड़ दें, कोलेट्रल कर दें। डायरेक्ट पैसा जब फेडरल से गिरे कंसोलिडेटेड पूल से, वो सीधा जाके डिस्ट्रिक्ट के अकाउंट में जाके गिरे, सूबे के पास सूबे का हिस्सा और जो गवादर है गवादर का हिस्सा। थैंक यू।
No political engineering also, sir.
Yes, agreed on that, ma'am. And I think I'll not take too much time if I start to wind up and take everyone's comments into account and speak about them. It is going to take another 1 hour or 40 minutes or so. I'll just briefly say 2-3 things. Number one, the consensus has evolved. What I see is to consider it to develop a broad-based consensus and using parliament as the main instrument. I think that's the way forward, as Ishtiaq Saab and many of you said, that it is the parliament which is to take it forward. It may take months, it may take years. We shouldn't hurry. It is not like a surgery. There is no emergency कि जी कोई उसकी वो open heart करनी है हमने फटाफट ना कोई गड़बड़ हो रही है तो वो we have lived with it for 78 years. We could live it for another few months or years. But important, no, not 70. But important is that if we think and we say that we are a democratic country, we have a parliament, we have a senate, I think they have the right to actually participate in the discussion and decide. Immediately जो करने की चीज़ें हैं वो आप सबने बताया कि गवर्नेंस की इम्प्रूवमेंट है, लोकल गवर्नमेंट है, 140 जो हमारा आर्टिकल है उसकी वो है इम्प्लीमेंटेशन है. But more importantly, I think in the longer run, अगर हम long term की बात कर रहे हैं तो वो कमीशन और joint parliamentary committee है. Short term की बात करते हैं हम तो उसमें ये है कि फौरी तौर पे एक consensus build होना चाहिए कि 18th amendment जो है इसमें कोई और amendments की ज़रूरत है कि नहीं है. और वो भी of course हमारे leadership ने parliamentarians ने करना है. But immediately जो करने की चीज़ें हैं गवर्नेंस को इम्प्रूव करना जो आप कह रहे हैं 40 साल से 70 साल से सुन रहे हैं दैट स्टिल रिमेन्स एन इशू. और वो जो एक आइडिया आया था कि तहसील लेवल जो है या विलेज लेवल पे एक्सपेंस का वो आई थिंक इट इज़ गोइंग टू टेक वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम कि हमारे कंट्री और हमारे जो लीडरशिप है वो इतना बड़ा दिल रख सकें कि वो पैसा जो है तहसील या विलेज के लेवल पे दे दें. बट आई थिंक तहसील इज़ अ मोर मैनेजेबल थिंग. थैंक यू सो मच. एंड दिस इज़ नॉट द फर्स्ट वन or the last one. This is the first one, sorry, not the last one. We are going to have more sessions, and ultimately when we make a paper, we'll share with you people, get your inputs, and send it to the government and respective department. Once again, thank you so much. Very candid views, convergences भी हैं, divergence भी हैं, और वही खूबसूरती है वो जो बूके वाली बात हो रही थी of different flowers. We have to live together, we have to live with the difference of opinion, cultures, ethnicity, and beliefs, and that is how the countries go forward. Once again, very grateful. We are honored. Thank you so much.